Here we come, blue and white, and we're looking good. You'll be in for a fight, and we fight pretty good. Getting goals is our job, and we get goals good. Looking good, we are Carlisle United.
Hello everyone, you're listening to the Brunton Bugle, the number one place to get your Carlisle United fix in the podcast world. I'm Lee Rooney.
And I'm Mike Booth.
It's 4 games without a goal as United go down to a narrow defeat at Leyton Orient. Are the wheels in danger of coming off? We review the defeat in East London. That was rubbish, wasn't it? Let's try again.
Here we come, blue and white, and we're looking good. You'll be in for a fight, and we fight pretty good. Getting goals is our job, and we get goals good. Looking good, we are Carlisle United.
Hello everyone, you're listening to the Brunton Bugle, the number one place to get your Carlisle United fix in the podcast world. I'm Lee Rooney.
And I'm Mike Booth.
It's 4 games without a goal as United go down to a narrow defeat at Leyton Orient. Are the wheels in danger of coming off? We review the defeat in East London before looking ahead to the Easter weekend doubleheader against Tranmere and Walsall.
With a pass so true to ball the stone and Clark's in view. There's a cross and a run.
Oh, there's a danger of the blip turning into a real slump, isn't there, Mike? It's just starting to get a little bit worrying. But despite that, I'm feeling optimistic going into this weekend's game, you know?
Yeah, I think we're due at turning it around and hopefully turn it around in style in front of a big crowd.
Yeah, we'll get onto that more in a minute. But how are you doing, mate? Did you manage to catch last weekend's game?
Well, no, actually, I was in work and I was in a place where I couldn't get Radio Cumbria signal, which I don't think was too bad in the grand scheme of things. But it's one of them. It's always going to be difficult going away to top of the league. It's just fine margins letting us down again, I think. We
always thought this run of 4 games was going to be tough, didn't we? And it's proved to be right, really, in the end. And we'll talk about the Orient game shortly. But there's factors to take into account in there. But there's things also that the team can do better, I think it's fair to say. All the usual stuff today. We've got a very, very brief news roundup. We'll have the Loan Watch, followed by the review of the Leyton Orient game, and then looking ahead to the Easter weekend doubleheader against Tranmere and Walsall. Then obviously the X-Files section at the end. Obviously Dan's not with us this week. He's busy working. I understand he might be missing a bit of the game tomorrow as well, possibly, because he's having to work, which is very frustrating, I think it's fair to say. But yeah, so let's get into it then. Before we get started, we want to talk about the fact who obviously sponsors the podcast this season, and also where you can find the podcast on all the apps and that kind of thing, and how you can get in contact with us. We'd like to say a big thank you to the Carlisle United Supporters Club London branch for once again sponsoring the podcast this season. The London branch is open to all Carlisle United fans. They've got members from Cornwall to Dundee and Houston to Singapore, and of course every part of London and the South East. They regularly meet up on away trips, as well as arranging many social events, supporters games and fundraising for the club. This season they'll be providing us with information for the away games as part of the preview section. You can find out more about the London branch at their website, carlisle.londonbranch.org. If you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe to the podcast. You can find us on all good podcast apps, whether it's Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Cast. Basically, search for the Brunton Bugle, click subscribe, and then when a new episode comes out, you'll get a little notification to tell you to download it and listen to it at your leisure. Also, if there's an option to review on any of those apps, please do so. If you can give us a 5-star review, that would be really lovely. It's a great way for us to get the message out about the podcast, and so more people can learn about it, and we can spread the word even more. You can also find us on social media, at Brunton Bugle, on Instagram and Twitter. If you go onto Facebook and search for the Brunton Bugle and click like as well, you can follow our page. We're also on the Be Just and Fear Not Facebook group, and also on the Buzz Is Back message board, the new message board that's replaced the Cumbrians.net. And also, if you want to drop us an email, bruntonbugle@gmail.com. Right then, Mike, let's get into it. News section first. As I said, there's not really a huge amount to cover in terms of actual news this week. We'll do a very brief update on 10 Pun to get in the Grun, the big promotion for this weekend's game. We'll talk a bit more in detail about that when we actually preview the Tranmere game. But sales have topped 11k now, haven't they? For their home fans at least as well. Away fans have sold about 600, they think. So
yeah,
which is a terrific effort, to be fair, because they're having a dreadful season, Tranmere, aren't they? So
yeah, well, and obviously the news today, they're opening up the waterworks end.
Yes, that is exciting as well. I've seen a lot of people very jealous about that they've already got a ticket for the game. They're all like, "Oh, can I swap my paddock ticket for the waterworks, please?" Because they've never been in there. And
have you ever been in it?
I've not been in there to watch a game. No,
I've never been in there.
I've been in the Warwick end. I've been in the East Stand. I've been in the paddock, and I've been in, I think, four of the lettered stands, the main stand ones. I haven't been in the A stand, I don't think. I might be wrong with that. I might actually have done that. But yeah, so I've done all those. It's the one left, really, for me to do. But I do know some people who are potentially looking at, seeing if they can come up last minute just so they can go in there. And there's a few people I know are travelling up who are looking to swap their tickets too. So very exciting stuff. But yeah, we'll talk about that more in the preview section. I mean, for those who are interested anyway, basically the £10 tickets, that's the main thing, isn't it? And they're going to be on sale on the day with no price increase. So very exciting. And the only other bit of news is the Barrow tickets, and it's the update, is that they've sold out in 2.5 hours.
It's always going to happen, won't it?
All 640 tickets have sold out. No major surprise there. I'm very grateful I managed to get mine. I mean, if we hadn't been going for promotion or anything like that, I probably wouldn't have bothered, because last season's experience, it's not a great place to watch football. And that's not. I'm not talking about the town itself there, although some people probably would say that. I'm talking about the away end. It's diabolical, and they know that. To be fair, I know they're doing work on it this summer to improve it. So, be interesting to see what it's like. And I mean, in the nicest way possible, unless they're coming up through the playoffs and we go up automatically. I hope it's not next season that we get to see it. But there you go. So yeah, 640 tickets all snapped up, and. Yeah, there was a warning from the club about not buying tickets for the home end, which I imagine some people won't take into account probably. And I know a few people who have already sorted themselves tickets, so as long as they behave themselves and don't get too excited when we're knocking our third, then yeah, it's fine.
Well, they'll stand out like sore thumbs if they've got all their teeth together. So
oh, come on, Michael, come on. Let's be fair here. Right, Loan Watch. Let's have a quick bash through that then. Max Kilsby and Annan, another great week for them, and they picked up a 1-0 win at playoff rivals East Fife, thanks to a 90th minute strike. I mean, that must have been exciting for them, I bet. Another full 90 minutes for Max as well. He's closing in on 30 first team appearances. That's his 29th. Only one of them is a sub as well, so fair play to the lad. He really has pinned down a place in a team that's doing well this season as well, hasn't he? So that's encouraging. And it's one of those ones that with contract decisions coming up fairly soon. Obviously, depending on playoffs and things like that, it might be a bit longer for us, but I think he's given himself the best possible chance to earn a deal for next season, hasn't he? Because it's an area where we're so well stocked currently that going out on loan and playing games is always going to be the best thing for him, wasn't it? Really?
Yeah, definitely. And well, he's notched 4 goals this season from sort of left back, centre back, which is impressive. At any level, really. And I mean, for contrast. Trying to see how many Moxon bagged last season at that level, but I think it was a similar sort of amount. Yeah,
I mean, to be fair, I think he had a slightly different role at Annan when he was there.
Yeah, he was kind of playing as a sort of deeper line midfielder, wasn't he? But that's still higher up the pitch than a centre back or left back.
True, very true indeed. There you go. And he did take all the set pieces again at Annan, I think. Fair, so there you go. It's so tight though at the top in the Scottish League 2. Excuse me. It basically leaves Annan in third on 44 points, but then you've got Forfar who are fourth on 44 points. All the fours there, isn't it? But they've got a -3 goal difference compared to Annan's +7. Then you've got East Fife in fifth on 43 points. God almighty, this is a tongue twister, isn't it? And then Stenhousemuir are in 6th place on 42 points, but with a game in hand on all the teams above them.
How was Stenhousemuir the easiest thing to say of all of the things that you've just said?
Ridiculous, isn't it? Really? I don't know who on earth's playing silly beggars with me there, but there you go. I'm just going to quickly check, because they might have played a game in midweek, Stenhousemuir, because it's very hard to keep up the Scottish League 2. Someone seems to have a game in hand all the time. And look at, actually, it was Stirling Albion played a game in midweek against Elgin City, which they won. So I think, if I'm right, that leaves Stirling Albion well clear at the top now. So 8 points clear, so they're going to go up. So basically, it's a battle to stay in the playoffs, Ryan. And they've got a mouth-watering tie this Saturday. They're at home against second place Dumbarton. So if you've enjoyed your football fix at Brunton Park on the Friday and you fancy another one, get yourself just over the border to Annan and get a chance to see what Max is up to there and Peter Murphy's side. That I'm sure they'll appreciate a big crowd against second place Dumbarton. And yeah, that's a big game for them. So all the best to Annan this weekend. Not quite so far over the border. Things are not going very well for Gretna, really, are they? Gretna 2008. Second 3-0 defeat on the road in a row. This time at East Kilbride. It leaves them firmly rooted in third bottom place, 7 points behind East Stirlingshire in the position above. I think we'll have to get Jeff Jackson, who listens regularly to the pod, to give us a bit of an update on what the situation is in terms of relegation from lower league this season. I'm not sure. I think it's slightly different with them. I think it might be based on ground criteria in the division above and people applying or something like that, but he'll know better than that. He's actually got an update for us on Leyton Orient later on, so I will share that with you shortly. Lewis played the full 90 again. That's his 30th appearance of the season. He got 5 goals for them. Yeah, not going great for them, but again, we keep saying it. It's good experience for Lewis, isn't it, really? Then that's the key thing, making sure he gets plenty of game time, because he's had a couple of years where he's, illness and injury have really blighted his time, haven't they? So hopefully that's going to really help him get himself into a good shape at the very least for the summer. Sam Fishburn, 2 more appearances for Sam. Morpeth, their struggles continue though. First up was a 1-0 home defeat to FC United of Manchester at the weekend. Sam got the final 13 minutes in that. And that was followed up by a 1-0 loss at Bamber Bridge, where he played the full 90. Over the Easter weekend, they faced a trip to Hyde United on Good Friday, followed by a home tie with Marsk United on Easter Monday. I don't think they're doing particularly well, Morpeth. I think they're just about safe from relegation. I think the teams below them are struggling a bit too much, so they should be fine. But yeah, it's not going well, I think it's fair to say. So yeah. Not really great for them. Right, Kai Nugent, he made his 8th appearance for Workington at the weekend, but it was disappointing for that week. Disappointing Saturday for them. They went down to a 1-0 defeat to Strugglers Widnes. Nugent came off in the second half in that game. I think the score was still 0-0 at that point, though. They still need 1 point to secure a playoff place with 4 games to go, but with the 3 teams below them being 11 and 12 points behind, it's pretty much secured. I mean, their goal difference is way better as well. So, in fact, actually, this weekend they can actually do it at Borough Park, because on Saturday they place one of the teams that's chasing them, and that's Witton Albion. So if they win that game, that's playoff secured, basically. So avoid defeating that; they'll be fine. Dan Hill and Clayton Moore. It was dramatic scenes for him and his Clayton Moore teammates. They grabbed an equaliser in the 7th minute of injury time and a 2-2 draw at home with Ashton United. Well, I think we're down to 10 men at that point as well, so great result for them in terms of that. They're still firmly bottom of the league, but not officially relegated yet. Now, Jeff Jackson, who, if Carla fans might not know, when you come into the East Stand and the bit where the junction is at the road, he's the programme seller there, so give Jeff a good shout out if you see him at the game on Friday. He's an expert on all things non-league, basically. He can tell you anything you want to know, and the Scottish lower leagues. And what he's done is he's explained what will happen with Clayton Moore. So basically, if Clayton finish bottom, they will be relegated unless there's not enough clubs coming up with a suitable ground. And Jeff thinks there is this year. So if they were relegated, they would go into the Wearside League, where they were before they were promoted in 2018, where Windscales, the Egremont-based team, are, or the West Lancs League, where Whitehaven plays. So it's up to them which one they want to go into. I'm pretty sure they'd probably go to the Wearside again. It's a weird one with Cumbria because they get to pick between the two, don't they? I think with 6 games left, they will officially relegated if they lose on Saturday. So yeah, I think that was last weekend actually. So basically, because they haven't, they're still okay at the moment. But I mean, they're going down basically. It's just the reality of it. They're too far behind now. And I do understand Lewis Boyd actually might have played for Carlisle City again another couple of games. We've lost track of the number of games he played because he came back to us for a bit and now he's gone back out again because he didn't play for the youth team the other day. I noticed that Gabe Breeze actually was in nets for the youth team because we're allowed to have, I think, 1 overage player in there. So I think Jack Ellis did it the other week, I seem to remember. So Gabe Breeze was in at the weekend to get a bit of game time because obviously he's not been able to get out on loan, unfortunately, this season, other than the brief spell he had at Widnes. So there you go. Right, enough warbling. It's time to talk about the game. Leyton Orient 1, Carlisle United 0. a much improved performance compared to the Gillingham game, wasn't it? Really, that's one of the key takes I think I took from this, and it's kind of you've got to check yourself in your head and remind yourself that these guys are top for a reason, and they've been top the whole season for a good reason, haven't they?
Yeah, exactly. And it was relatively fine margins again against them, which is a bit frustrating, and it's not exactly what we need in the little run that we're on right now, but we'll just have to pick ourselves up and go again without wanting to sound too cliched.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, Mike. I think, as I said in the introduction at the start there, we always looked at this run of 4 games and thought it was going to be tough, even allowing for Gillingham being near the bottom. They've improved so much since the turn of the year. It's more like playing a mid-table team that's pushing for the playoffs, really, than a team that's struggling down at the bottom, isn't it, really? So we had to allow for that. 3 away games in a row as well, long journeys. There's issues taken into account. Yes, we should have played better, and then there should be a little bit more belief in the way we're playing, really, than we're showing right now. But there was encouraging signs in there, and you just don't want to get too downhearted because there's only 7 games to go. We've got to believe that we can do it still. And yes, it is in Northampton's hands now because they've got that 4-point lead over us rather than the 3-point lead that they had. So it's frustrating in that sense that even if we beat them, technically they can still stay ahead of us. But then I look around and I think to myself, we'll talk about it later, but Stevenage this weekend have got to play, I think, at Hartlepool and Crawley. And I don't know if that's particularly easy, because...
No. This is the time of year where them sorts of teams pluck results out of nowhere.
I mean, Hartlepool, the difference in Hartlepool since John Askey's taken over seems to be incredible. It shows you what an absolute shit show of a job that Curl had done there, doesn't it? Because Askey's come in and within a few games, he's got them looking organised in a semblance of a team. It's just a bit of bad luck that Crawley picked up form at the same time as them. But there you go. Enough talking about that, though. Let's talk about this game then. So, team selection-wise, there was the return of Finn Back and Paul Huntington in place of Senior and Barkley, and that was a huge boost. And Simo also opted to recall Dennis to the attack and McCalmont to the midfield for Garner and Gordon. The only other surprise, really, was Jamie Devitt coming onto the bench as well. A little bit of a change there, maybe to add a bit more creativity to the options. He basically took Gordon's place on the bench, effectively, didn't he? He wasn't even in the matchday squad, which was a bit of a surprise because I think you had him down to score a goal in that game.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you were delighted with Simo when you saw that. But this was rotten luck, isn't it? I mean, what was your thoughts when you saw the team? Were you particularly surprised, maybe? Or, I mean, I think we kind of expected those two to come back into defence, didn't we?
Yeah, I wouldn't say surprised. No, I mean, it's one of them. It's obviously disappointing. With some of the injuries that happened during the game, which really disrupted us, and not only disrupted us in the first half, but in the second half, we didn't have a lot of changes that we could have made to maybe impact the game.
Well, because of the ridiculous rules and the way they're done. The new rule since they brought in the 5 subs thing is not including the half-time period. You're only allowed 3 substitution windows, but you can make 5 subs in total. But that includes the whole game. So I always thought it was just for the second half, which would make more sense because if you're making first half subs, you're not doing it to time waste.
Yeah.
You're doing it because you've got injuries or issues. So I always thought it's better to do that, say, from the second half onward, you've only got 3 windows. But as it was, we had to make 2 substitutions in the first half, which meant we only had 1 window left in the second half, didn't we?
Yeah, plus half-time if we'd have really wanted to. But
yeah, and there was a little bit of a concern about Moxon going into the half-time break, wasn't there? But that was thankfully unfounded. So yeah, it was kind of... It was frustrating, like you said, that it disrupted the rhythm, those injuries, didn't it? And, I mean, looking at first half incidents, the first one you've talked about is one of those injuries, and that's Morgan Feeney going after 7 minutes. Now, I was busy doing a few jobs around the house, so I didn't manage to get to listen to the start of the game. And the first thing I heard was on Ben Barkley stripped off, ready to come on. I was thinking, yeah, it's only 7 minutes in, what's going on here? My worry was it was Huntington, and then when I heard it was Feeney, I was like, oh, that's just so slow, isn't it, really? You get one defender back, the other one goes out, and Barkley has to come back in. We know Barkley's an able replacement. He can come in and do a decent job, and that was, pleasing to see him come in and do okay. It's a shame. We'll talk about what the outcome of that injury to Feeney shortly. But yeah, beyond that, I mean, we caused a few problems in the first half, didn't we? I mean, particularly down the right. Finn Back was getting up really well up the pitch and linking up with McCallum the first time they'd played together. Mm-hmm. And that was really good to see, wasn't it, really? That just a little bit of decision-making in there. There's one chance where I think it's the one where the Back does the underlap, and he's picked out McCallum, but he could have pulled it back to Moxon. Moxon was pretty much on the penalty spot, totally unmarked. Chance to get a shot away. But he took one more touch, got to the byline, and got blocked, and it went out for a corner. And you just think, that's probably where, if Finn Back's played 4 or 5 games and got himself back up to sharpness, he picks him out there, doesn't he?
Yeah, definitely. And it's not the first time that decision-making in the final third has been letting us down lately. And it's something that I think if Jamie Devitt was to get some time in the team, it's something that he's generally pretty good at.
Yeah, he generally picks his passing. He moves the ball quicker as well. It's one thing where Simo actually did say in his post, he's pretty much comments for the Tranmere game, he said that one of the issues he's got is that we're being a bit too slow to make that final pass, to make that final decision. And that's one thing. When you watch when Devitt plays, he's very quick to move the ball quickly. He doesn't mess about with it. He keeps it ticking over, doesn't he? So that's why we'll talk later about what we think the team should be for the other game. But that's why I'd be tempted to involve him in that game. But there you go. Yeah, so there's a few over efforts. I mean, there was one chance that Holy blocked from close range, I think, and then a shot that went over, and then Finn Back sat himself down, didn't he? And just at that point, you were just like, "Oh, come on, this just isn't fair, is it?" The curse of the right wing back continues this season, doesn't it? It's just one thing after another, and I hate to say it, but it looks like Finn Back's hamstrings are a little bit cursed at the moment, doesn't it? Because we found out after the game, it was the other hamstring, wasn't it?
Yeah. And, Forrest had said he can play 70 minutes, so it's not like we brought him back too soon or anything like that.
The plan was always to put Barkley or Gibson on that wing, wasn't it, later on in the game?
So, yeah, it's just rotten luck, isn't it? And it's a shame for him because I think the loan spell was doing him a lot of good, and I think he could have been looking at maybe Championship, certainly League One at the very least next season, and it just hinders him that little bit in his personal development as well.
But from our viewpoint, it might help us in that he hasn't quite fully developed yet. If we're in League One next season, could we get him back for another full season, possibly?
Maybe.
We've seen in the past, when Ben Marshall came back for a full season and things like that, and Liam Noble, so you never... I'm just fingers crossed here, because I'd love to see him come back, because I think he's a terrific player, really do. I think he'd be a great addition, even at that level. Only one more chance before half-time, as Jordan Gibson, continued our run of not being able to get a direct free kick on target. I'm being a bit harsh there because it was a half decent strike that only just went wide of the post and a little bit the other way, and it's heading towards the top corner. Although Vigoury might have got a hand to it, I think he was getting across. But so that was it. Going into half time, you're frustrated with the 2 injuries, but you're looking and thinking, okay, this is fine. We're not looking like we're going to concede. We're keeping it fairly tight. It's not too bad. Into the second half, I think we kind of anticipated Orient were going to come out a little bit stronger, weren't they, and have a bit of a go. And they did, they had the chances, that they caused a few problems. There was a brilliant save from Holy. I don't know if you've seen this one, particularly the view from the pitch side blues for this is to get his hand down that low and quick to save it was fantastic. It was really good.
No, do you know what? I didn't see it. I couldn't watch pitch side blues this week. They've been like dubbing crowd noise over it, and it was unwatchable for me. I just couldn't. The crowd noise was only on for the first minute or two of the actual match action. Later on into the second half match action, they hadn't put it on. I agree with you. I found it very hard to watch. It was really off-putting, and just I wanted to hear the players coming in, in the tunnel when they park up the bus and stuff like that, but you couldn't really hear anything. I don't know if that's because there's a few naughty words in there they didn't want to dub out or something, but maybe. I'd rather hear some music over it than that, to be honest. It just doesn't quite work for me, but that's just our opinion, isn't it? But yeah, brilliant save by Holy. There was a few of sort of scuffed chances for them. Huntington put in a brilliant tackle on Smith, which bizarrely they were claiming for a penalty. I don't know why. And then came the own goal, and I mean when you look down, it's down, isn't it? It just.
what can you do about something like this? So basically, Sartorio's just come on as a sub, cuts in from the left onto his stronger right foot, hits a shot that's going well wide. It hits, I think it's Huntington it hits, or Barkley, I think one of the two of them. Bounces off him, bounces off another player, and then comes at such a pace towards Mellish. He doesn't even really stick a knee out of it, does he? It just sort of hits his knee, flies in completely the opposite direction to where Hurley's put all his weight to go and claim the ball. And yeah, it's one of those ones. If it hit Mellish's knee just directly, I think Hurley might have got to it. But because it had taken those two flicks and Hurley had already put all his weight the other way, he didn't have a chance, did he? And it flew right over his head and into the net.
That's the thing, and it kind of sums up our look at the minute, really, is, the ball sort of pings and goes in the net. And I'm not blaming Mellish for it, I'm not blaming Hurley for it either, but when things are going well for you, that ball will sort of ping to McCalmont or someone who's like 3-on-3 in their third. Do you know what I mean? And it just wasn't to be for us, and we'll touch on it in a bit, but in fact, may as well touch on it now. Actually, the Mellish chance.
Well, no, we'll talk about the red card first. Just before that. So
go on the red
literally,
card.
Obviously, the goal came on 73 minutes. 4 minutes later, Orient down to 10 men. Charlie Kelman sent off for a second booking. I don't think you could argue much with this, could he? I don't think he really did, to be honest, on the day.
For me, the only controversial thing about that, because they're all arguing about it, they're all saying, oh, no, the only controversial thing for me, I think it should have been a straight red. I don't think it should have been a second yellow.
I mean, to be honest, considering that Mellish was fouled for a red card against them last season, it wasn't much better than the one the lad got a straight red for last year, which was a really bad tackle. And he's gone for his ankle when the ball's well gone. Really, really nasty little challenge.
Zero need to do it, zero need whatsoever.
Yeah, absolutely. He's not getting to the ball, so why do you even do that? And he got a stupid booking in the first half, didn't he, as well, for basically, Armour was going to get booked for the foul on Swift. There's no argument with that. Armour didn't argue about it. And he came up all pushing and shoving everybody and just getting involved for no reason. And you do wonder with football sometimes, what are you gaining from doing this?
Yeah.
Nothing at all. So just bizarre behaviour, isn't it? Well, let's talk about Mellish's chance to make amends. Now, he got a lot of stick for this at the time. And there was a lot of things saying, and James Phillips, he hasn't got the benefit of an action replay, we should say. He felt, he completely fluffed it up. He, complete mess up. He should be scoring from there. What happens is their player plays a back pass. Two defenders leave it. And Mellish, being like John, a dog running after, a ball, chases after it, gets in, nicks around the goalkeeper, and then tries to put it into the net, but he can't sort out of his feet, and the defender clears off the line. Actually, when you watch back the replays, and especially when you watch the pitchside blues stuff back, it's a brilliant hand from the goalkeeper, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Because you watch what he does, he palms it, instead of palming it sort of forward into a path where John could have slid onto it, he palms it right into Mellish's legs, into his knee almost. And the result is, because John is going at full pelt, he can't get out of his feet in time. He does as much as he can and tries to direct it towards goal. And you can see Callum Guy's very angry on the full, the main footage thing. But I think when Guy looks back, he'll probably look and think, he's done as much as he can there.
Yeah.
The most he could have done was maybe take another touch, but then by then you might have had two defenders back on the line to block it. So I think it'd be harsh to blame John for that, really. I feel like he's created the chance out of nothing there, really, so he deserves the credit for that. But Vigor is such a good goalkeeper. I mean, I was so impressed with his footwork as well in this game. His kicking's fantastic. A really, really good goalkeeper at this level. So, yeah, really, really gutting, really, to not see that going, because that would have been a great little redemption moment. And I feel like if that had gone in, we might even go on to win the game.
Yeah.
Our heads would have been up at that point.
Yeah.
It's almost like that dead to that confidence a little bit more. Thinking, we can't even score that. What can we do? And what I would say, actually, is when you watch the replay back, both the main footage and especially the pitch side blues one, John could have gone down under the challenge from the defender just before he gets to the goalkeeper.
Yeah, but would it have been given?
I think it would, because he's through on goal. And the problem with that is, I think it's just outside the box. If it's just outside the box, that's a straight red card for denying a goal scoring opportunity. It's basically that's the way the rule works. But if the ref gives a penalty, then the defender only gets a booking because of the double jeopardy rule now, don't they? Because they've made an attempt to get to the ball. I mean, calling it an attempt is a bit of a stretch, but that's what the argument would be. So you'd have to balance out what would happen there potentially, wouldn't you? I guess so. So yeah, it's one of those ones, and I don't really blame John because he's got every chance to get around the keeper there, and fair play to Vigouroux, he's done brilliantly to limit it. And then only one more chance later after that was Gibson had a left foot shot that was quite well saved by Vigouroux, then sort of got the loose ball as well. And yeah, that was it. And it's weird because I was kind of like, I'm deflated by the result, but not deflated by the performance. I feel slightly encouraged by it, just because it was. If we played as bad as we did against Gillingham, I'd be worried, but we didn't, did we?
No, exactly. And we've got a big home game now to bounce back from it. It's not like the Gillingham game where the opportunity to bounce back from it was Leyton Orient away, which is always going to be difficult.
Yeah, arguably the toughest game of the season, that one, isn't it, really? And we've come out of it with a narrow defeat, basically, thanks to an own goal that's come off a player's knee. So, you got to take the positives from that section of it, I guess. There you go. Right, we've got a 6-second review this week. We haven't had one of these for a little while, but this week's review is from the brilliantly named Oscar Snowball. I'm presuming that is your real name, Oscar. You emailed it in. Thank you very much for sending it in. Anyone who wants to contribute, bruntonbugle@gmail.com. If you just do a little recording on your WhatsApp, on your voice note or whatever on the iPhone or on your Android phone, email it in to us and we'll try to include it. Keep it to 60 seconds. Brilliant names, Oscar Snowball. Kind of sounds like, when Bob Mortimer goes on Would I Lie to You? And he's got all the made up names. It kind of sounds like one of them, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, like Johnny Hailstone or something like that. Or I'm trying to think what other weather thing, I don't know, Mikey Rainman or something like that, I don't know, but there you go. Anyway, right, before, I sound like I'm taking the piss out of Oscar's name there, I'm not. I do apologise. I hope he's enjoying this bit. Anyway, before I ramble anymore, here's Oscar's 6-second review.
Hi Lee and the lads. Disappointing result, not a disappointing performance. Orient are, as is quite obvious given their league position, brilliant. They're the best in the league by a mile, and we would have had to have been at our absolute best to have beaten them. The way they play out from the back, their style, yes, it meant that for 90 minutes all of us fans were on the edge of our seats because you're constantly waiting for them to make a mistake, so you're in, but they just don't make a mistake. The amount of dodgy passes their keeper got at Figaro, and he's quality. They didn't make a mistake, and what it eventually obviously means is they're tiring out our players, and it showed in the second half. Mox and Guy, Alfie as well. You could see Dennis getting frustrated up front because we just couldn't cope. We were chasing shadows. So it worked. You can see why they win 1-0 too often, because they do that all throughout the game. They tire out the opposition and then one pass goes through and they're in. Obviously their goal was very, very lucky. If you watch it back, it's so lucky, but they probably did deserve it in the end. Obviously you can't ignore the defensive injuries. I mean, you can't foresee both our defenders on the right-hand side ending up as being substitutes by 35 minutes in. And it showed as well. You could tell when Gibson and Barkley were next to each other on that right-hand side, there was often a spare Orient man out there, and you could see Barkley and Gibson arguing. No one really knew who to mark him. And again, can't blame anyone for that. In terms of Carlisle players, thought Holy, the last few weeks, he probably deserved another clean sheet today. Last few weeks, he's been amazing. Silenced his critics. That save down to the right-hand post from our angle, from our section, from the section we were in, it looked like a goal. So what an amazing save. McCalmont in that first half was our best player by a mile. He was all over the shop. I think it's definitely a mistake to have dropped him against Gillingham, and I can't see him not playing for the rest of the season. And Mellish again was brilliant at the back, and obviously we forgive him for his miss. What a man! Great support as always, and shout out to my dad who's a big fan of the pod. Come on, you Blues!
Brilliant stuff. Thanks for that, Oscar. First time he's done one. Really good. Get them sent in for the next ones that you're able to do as well. I'm presuming you'll be doing the Sutton game hopefully. So maybe we'll have a promotion celebration special. Maybe we just have half an hour of 6-second reviews of people just. Basically standing with Regan saying shag is shag. It's as simple as that, basically. And that's what we're praying for, isn't it, for that one? I think that's a fair assessment, that, Mike, do you say?
Yeah, definitely. It's good. It's in depth. Obviously, we weren't there. He could be talking absolute baloney, but no, it's
it's more likely to be us talking baloney, isn't it? Because we weren't there.
Well, yeah. To be fair, yeah. But yeah, no. I mean, it was sort of echoing our sort of positive sentiments that not every defeat has to be negative, really.
No, absolutely, and I think he makes he agreed with our point on Vigouroux, didn't he? You know how good he is with.
Yeah.
You know, you can play a stinker of a pass back to him and he'll get it on, and to be fair, Holy does that, but it's the accuracy of what he does, and he generally picks out a man as well, Vigouroux, which is, you know.
Yeah, I mean, we said in the pre-match preview for this one that I don't know how he's still playing in this league, to be honest.
It's his 23rd clean sheet of the season, basically. So more than half the games this season, he's probably going to be keeping clean sheets, which is remarkable, really, isn't it? And we're impressed with Holy getting 16. You know,
yeah.
So it just goes to show how good he is as well. I mean, let's go through some of the talking points I've got written down there, Mike. The main point was better performance, same result, isn't it? You know, it's no doubt that much improved performance by United against a team, you know, the best team in the division, but luck just wasn't on our side. But then again, there's an argument. You've got to make your own luck, and I suppose the one downside is only 2 shots on target all game. One of those was the Gibson chance. In fact, the 2 chances, if I'm off the top of my head, would be the Gibson chance at the end, and Mellish's one that was cleared off the line.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like to look at shots on target that much, particularly, because it can be misleading. You know, a 2 mile an hour P roller into the keeper's hands, you know, it is apparently better than one that hits the bar. You know, I don't really agree with it. And likewise, you know, there can be chances that aren't shots on goal. You can have a fizzing cross that goes across the 6-yard box that someone is an inch away from getting the toe on, you know. I was just going to say, you know, 7 shots away at Orient, it's not bad altogether. Yeah. You know, I think there'd be a lot of teams that won't even get that. So,
yeah, and to be honest, I'm just thinking off the top of my head. Actually, technically, I think we've had 3 shots on target in that game because there was that one other chance there where Back and McCalmont linked up really well, and McCalmont played that low ball in that Dennis flicked towards goal that was blocked. And I don't think that was counted as a shot on target. It probably should have been, really. It would have been a really clever goal if it had gone in. So, yeah, it's a little bit of an unfair one, really, to say that we only had 2 in that sense. But there you go. I mean, first question I put here, what has gone wrong in these 4 games? I mean, as we said at the intro, the blip is in danger of becoming a slump. I think there's things you can allow for in that. As we said, you know, we just had 3 tough away trips in a row. 2 of those long journeys all the way down to London, 2 weeks in a row. But there can be no doubt that last 2 performances haven't really hit the same height as we've been at, have they?
No, and there's nothing sort of personnel-wise that's different than, you know, when we were having a good form earlier in the season, really. But one thing for me, you know, we touched on it before, it's our decision-making in the final third. And for me, the midfield 3, so you've kind of got Guy and Moxon, and their role is sort of win the ball a bit and sort of get forward a bit, is their role. And then you've got like McCalmont or Gibson, and their role is more of a sort of number 10. And for me, every sort of 3-man midfield that you can think of in any team throughout the years. I remember listening to Neil MacDonald on Radio Cumbria talk about this in depth years ago when we had Chris Billy. And he said his job is to sit in front of the back 4, hoover everything up. Chris Lumsden, he'll sit in the middle and ping the ball about. And Paul Murray, it was back then, get in the box, get in the final third and cause problems. And I think that we'd be better having something like that and having Callum Guy just hoover everything up and letting Moxon get a little bit further forward and do a little bit more in the final third.
So you'd have Moxon as the one furthest forward rather than McCalmont?
Maybe furthest forward, or maybe in that Lumsden role, pinging the ball about. But I don't want him worrying as much about defensive responsibilities.
But then his record as defensively is really good in terms of number of tackles. He's won the season and stuff like that. So
but you potentially I would rather he was winning the ball higher up.
Yeah, I think Simo's. We'll talk about the preview of the Tranmere game in a bit, but Simo's been very clear. He wants them to be a bit more positive and a bit more play a bit more front foot, a bit more with belief, rather than, you know, waiting for things to happen. That he wants them to make things happen. So maybe you might see a bit of that this weekend, possibly. Next thing I had down here, Mike, is it's about the rotation of the forwards. And this is just an opinion of mine, but I think you share fairly similar because we sort of discussed this in WhatsApp groups. Since the arrival of Garner and Gordon, he's been sort of regularly chopping and changing the forwards, hasn't he, to keep them all fresh. Is there a danger that the players are struggling to find consistency as a result? So is it time now? He needs to say, right, you are going to be my 2 strikers for these next 3 or 4 games. Go out there, work on yourselves together, and the other one say, I need you ready to come on in games in effect, so you need to be ready to drop in and do the job when needs be.
Possibly, but I mean, he gave Patrick and Garner a little bit of a run, and they didn't really get enough goals, so you can't keep giving them a run forever.
Yeah, but I mean, my personal opinion is I think we need to get Dennis back in as the one who's playing for the next few games, because we need goals, and he was scoring goals. I think he's been unlucky in the games he's come in recently, because what chances has he had created for him? He's done a lot of running, but he's not really had chances created for him, so that's where the problem is with that.
But as well, you know, we touched before on luck, and Dennis is a player. When the ball bounces off someone's knee in the box, Dennis is there, you know, and we say luck, but there's a skill and an ability to it in being in the right place at the right time, and that's what we need. We need, when the ball bounces off someone's knee in the box, we need Dennis to score a goal and open a game up, and then maybe the floodgates will open and we'll score 2 or 3.
That's the hope, isn't it? Yeah, so my opinion is that he needs to stop rotating the forwards and just stick with 2 for the next few games. Just to say to him, right, you're going to have the next, basically up to maybe the Stockport game, you are going to be my, barring injuries, you're going to be my 2 forwards. I know which 2 I'd pick, but we'll talk about that in the preview section later on. Something that's similar, actually, made some quite marked comments after the game. On the club's YouTube channel, he talked about the quality of delivery into the box, especially regarding set pieces. He said he just isn't. It wasn't at the same level, and they weren't playing with a bit of belief in there. They weren't believing what they were doing. They were almost just doing it on autopilot. Do you think this is an issue? I tend to agree with him actually on this. And again, I don't say, Moxon's struggling to maybe make the impact he was, and you've talked about a way of resolving that potentially. I think that's probably quite a good suggestion actually. He's hitting his dipping form at just the wrong time, isn't it? Do we need to mix things up a little bit in that area? Whether it's someone else taking a couple of the set pieces just to mix it up as well.
Maybe, yeah. And again, it's hard to pinpoint why they haven't been as good, because personnel-wise, it's not like any of the targets in the box have been out, really. I mean, obviously, we missed Huntington for, a game or 2, but yeah, it's hard to pinpoint exactly why.
I think Huntington does make a big difference on set piece there, because even though he doesn't win every single header, he's such a big presence there. He does take a couple of defenders, and he gives options to other players, I think. So he has been missing. As good as Feeney's the one who tends to go for the header, whereas Huntington tends to be the one who just causes a bit of bother in there, really. So interesting to see how we cope with that. And Barkley's not so much of a header on set pieces, is he, I suppose, but he's very good in the air, so it's a bit of a surprise that he isn't. But yeah, and I do wonder with direct free kicks, it's what I keep banging on about this season, they haven't been great quality. If Devitt's not going to be in the team, I'd like to see us mix it up a little bit. Personally, I'd like to see maybe Amari Patrick try one. He's got a good long range shot in him. You know, just to mix it up, just to see if someone different can have a go at it, because truth is, Moxon, his direct free kicks just haven't been great quality this season. I'm not sure. I think he's hit the time.
I don't know. I mean, he's been close with a couple.
Close is close. Not enough, is it really? That's the thing. It's, you know, Gibson's been much closer, to be fair, and even some of his he's put in the Waterworks car park. But he's been the nearest to scoring, to be fair, other than Devitt's free kick against Harrogate, I think it was, wasn't it?
But at the same time, though, and I said this a while ago, it seems we haven't won as many direct free kicks this year as previous years. I mean, it's bizarre. Like when we had Danny Granger and Jamie Devitt both taking them and both pinging them in, we won loads of them, and you'd think that back then teams wouldn't want to concede free kicks against us. But
you kind of hope that Garner would win a few more, but he's not really been getting that from referees at the moment. So again, it's one of those ones that do we persist with Joe at the moment, because he's not getting the goals, and he had that brilliant run of games where he won those 2 man of the matches when he didn't even assist or score in the games at home. But he's not really quite up there at the moment, so maybe a little break out the team and coming off the bench instead might be a good idea for him. I don't know, but there you go. So other points. The lack of goals, I mean, it's got to be a growing concern, isn't it? 360 minutes since we last scored in the league. We can go back to that point about rotating the strikers. Maybe there's a question about the quality of chance we've created in recent weeks. I mean, Mellish isn't getting forward as much as well, actually. I've noticed that the last 3 or 4 games. He did a couple of times also in this game, but that was more when they were down to 10 men, wasn't it, really? And he was a bit more freedom to get up. we're not pushing him into midfield anymore. And that's not really been seen as an option at this point. Yeah. The other thing I've noticed, we're not really doing any long range efforts, are we, at the moment?
No, and I think that comes from Simo, to be honest, because he's been frustrated in a few games when we've kind of done well to get the ball in the final third and then just wasted it with a 40-yard shot. And I think there's often a point in them 40-yard shots if you've got a Christian Dennis on the pitch and, you know, the keeper saves it 9 times out of 10, Dennis will get the rebound. But, yeah, we just... I don't know what it is. It's just not clicking in the final third at all. And, yeah, we need to be a little bit braver, I think, and have players step up and...
I'd just like to see them. I'd like to see one or two of them just having a crack from distance, just to get the crowd going as much as anything. Maybe they're all capable. Moxon's capable. Guy's shown he's very capable this season, and even McCalvin, you know, he's looked decent from some of his long range efforts. So I just want to see a couple of them just think, you know what, I'm just going to have a dig here, because the last 3 or 4 games we haven't been doing that. We've been a lot more cautious, and I want to see. Simo said that he's pretty much coming for Tranmere, so he knows that. We've talked about a lot of negativity, but let's end this bit on a bit of a positive. So, you know, still some promising signs, even though, you know, he didn't take that chance. Seeing Mellish burst into the box was, you know, nice to see, wasn't it? You know, he playing with a bit of belief. And we've got through that horrible run of 3 away games now, haven't we, Mike? So,
yeah.
We aren't actually... This is the thing as well. Horrible run. We haven't got great results, but we've only conceded 2 goals in the last 4 games. And one of those was a 96th minute, you know, or 94th minute winner, you know, with one of the last kicks of the game where just, you know, he thrashed it at the lad. And that was the only real chance they had in that game. And the other one was a scabby one that came off John Mellish's knee and went over the keeper. So yeah, that's a positive take. But defensively, we're still looking pretty sound, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, if we were as ineffective as we've been in the final third and shipping goals left, right and centre, it'd be really, really concerning. But, you know, a solid defence is always a good foundation for a team. And hopefully we can get it all to click together on Friday.
Exactly. Quickly to round up before we do the preview section, Mike. It was a missed opportunity for United, really, wasn't it? Because Northampton and Stevenage played out a 1-1 draw at Sixfields. The Cobblers took the lead in that one. I think Stevenage equalised for about 9 minutes to go, didn't they? So it's kind of one of those ones that for a long period we were in third place because we were getting a point and Stevenage were dropping out the automatic places. So that was a little bit frustrating in that sense. And seeing them play out that draw was kind of like, you know, if we could have nicked something against Orient, great. We're in a position where if we beat Northampton now, then we go ahead of them, don't we? So yeah, a little bit disappointed in that. Back into the playoff race, Bradford came from behind to grab a 3-2 win at home against Grimsby Town. Friday night, Stockport and Salford played out a 1-1 draw in front of the biggest league crowd at the county ground since they faced Manchester City 22 years ago. Yeah, which would have been back in the old, what was the first division, now the Championship. People forget that City were down level, don't they? So,
but still, Salford's away turnout for that wasn't great.
No, I think they only had the one block on the side, didn't they? I think the home fans were behind the goal for this one, weren't they? Similarly in the way ours are going to be this weekend. So yeah, I mean, if you've seen the Salford equaliser, it's a brilliant finish, but where on earth is the defending on that? Like, the players on the edge, throw-ins played in, and the player on the edge of the box has time to turn and hook a volley towards goal. The two centre-backs, the centre-back and the full-back are about 20 yards apart. Appalling bit of defending it was. So that was a decent result. I mean, they're all, annoyingly, of the top 6, ours was the only one that didn't end up 1-1, wasn't it? So, typical that, isn't it? Just sod's law. Just outside the playoffs, Mansfield battered Crawley 4-1. Sutton were held to a 1-1 draw with Walsall, while Barrow keeping their slight hopes of a top 7 finish alive with a 2-1 win over Gillingham. I still think it's just probably out of Barrow's reach. But it does make that game at Holker Street a bit nervous, doesn't it, really?
It does a bit.
If they keep the form up, and I'm hoping they get a couple of losses before then, so they drop out of it, but there you go. Down to the bottom quickly, Rochdale and Hartlepool both picked up big wins. 1-0 at AFC Wimbledon, and a 2-1 home win against Swindon for Hartlepool, who got a goal in, the 89th minute and then the 94th minute to win that one, which is quite remarkable. And that's keeping the pressure on Crawley, Harrogate, Colchester and Newport. They all could get dragged into it, couldn't they? So it's quite tight. I think Rochdale have basically been let down by Hartlepool getting a result, basically, and Crawley's decent recent form, so I don't think they're going to get out of it. But Hartlepool could well drag one of those teams into it, couldn't they? So it's not all over at the bottom. It's certainly very exciting, which is good for us, because some of the teams around us have got to play those teams, haven't they, in the remaining games? Whereas
exactly.
Looking at it, we've got anyone down in the bottom left to play, have we?
No, we don't.
Think about it. We've only got, obviously, Sutton, Barrow and Walsall and Tranmere are the only teams that aren't challenging for the top that we've got left to play. So not a bad situation to be in that sense. That's another positive for you there to end the first half. We'll take a short break and then we'll be back to preview the Easter weekend games.
Hi, I'm Paul Simpson from the football club. Welcome to the Brunton Bugle.
You know, Mike, when I was just listening to that there, I was just thinking, he says welcome to the Brunton Bugle. We really should have that at the start of the show, shouldn't we, really?
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense to have it as the half-time break. Paul Simpson from the football club. As if everyone doesn't know who he is. What a man. What a man. Right, into the preview section, Mike. We've got 2 behind enemy lines this week. I have to say, I feel sorry for the pair of them, because I made them talk to me for like 20 odd minutes about their team seasons, and anyone who's seen where those 2 teams are in the league this season and some of their recent results will know that was not an enjoyable experience for either of them, I don't think. So I do apologise in advance to the pair of them, but there you go. Dan has done us a question of the week, though, so should we do that first?
Yeah, go on.
So here's Dan's question.
I played 91 games for Walsall. I played 155 games for Carlisle. And I also played 36 games for Tranmere. Who am I?
Oh, now that is a belter. Managing to connect all 3 clubs in one go. That's a good one, that one. All right, I'm trying to think of someone who's played for all 3 of us. Oh. No. I was going to say Derek Mountfield. Because I know he played for Walsall, but I don't think he played for Tranmere, even though, he's from round that way.
Okay.
Who are you thinking?
A tough one. No, that's really tough. Yeah, because I keep on thinking of one like, oh yeah, no, and then there's the one club that he didn't play for. Yeah. No, do you know what? We'll sit on it and then we'll try and figure it out at the end.
Okay, so we'll give everyone else a chance to have a little bit of a think while they're listening and see if they can get it early on. But there you go. Right, into the second half of the show. It's time for the Behind Enemy Line section, the first one. Speaking to Paul from the This Is Tranmere podcast. We spoke about what went wrong for Mickey Mellon this season. Some interesting stuff from Paul. He talks about a little bit in depth about the issues off the field there as well, basically, in terms of, Mellon wanting to go into one direction and the club maybe wanting to go another, and that was maybe the issue that led to him eventually leaving and him struggling so much. There's a bit about that. Their ongoing troubles in front of goal, and what his hopes are for the summer and next season, and who he wants to replace Mellon as manager. So here's the chat I had with Paul. So this is the first of our 2 Behind Enemy Line sections this week. Obviously, it's the Easter weekend doubleheader, and we're speaking to Paul from the This Is Tranmere podcast. Paul, I think that these are going to be 2 chats with sets of fans who are probably just quite happy to see the season end. I mean, for Tranmere Rovers, it's been a sort of a barren few years since you got that relegation, thanks to the points per game. You've never really been able to sort of get your mojo back almost, have you? It's been a really tough few years.
Yeah, it's been a grind, Lee, to be honest. This season has been, I don't want to use the word disaster, but a disaster, really. High expectations, I guess. There was a lot of talk in the summer that the club were going in one direction, and it just felt like throughout the last sort of 6 to 9 months that that direction has not been kind of cohesive, and it's not really been the direction that the manager maybe really wanted to go down, and it was all just a bit of a mess towards the end. And obviously, Mickey Mellon's lost his job, and we've got caretaker manager at the moment. So yeah, it's just it's been disappointing, to say the least. We've not really got going, never really hit a run of form where we could say, yeah, that was a good part of the season. It's been very win, lose, win the odd one. We've not put a run of results together. Not scored enough goals, which has been ultimately what's costing us. But the club kind of tried to go down a route of bringing in young players to kind of develop. And we were told at the end of the start of the season, this is going to be a developing team, and to expect the odd mistakes, but it's going to be exciting, free flowing, attacking football. And game one onwards, it's we've not seen any of that yet so far. So we've had the odd good game. We beat Orient at Prenton Park 1-0, which was a good performance. But other than that, I'm struggling to find a game where I could say, wow, I've really enjoyed that 90 minutes of football. It's been a grind, and like you say, we've not really had too much success since we got that demotion sort of 3-4 years ago. So we had a playoff run under Keith Hill / AN Other, but other than that, it's been mid-table mediocrity really, and like I say, this season, when Mickey Mellon came back a couple of years ago, we were hopeful that he was going to bring back the times that he had in his first spell in charge with the back-to-back promotions, and there was a lot of optimism going about, and it's dissipated quite quickly, and who knows where the club goes from here. But we're managerless and stuck in the middle of the table, neither going to go up and neither going to go down. So just bring on the end of the season.
I've known that feeling a few times. I think it's fair to say. We've got to talk about Mickey Mellon then, I suppose, first. I mean, I suppose he's always going to be a legend to your fans of what he did first time round, and obviously his time as a player as well. But what went wrong for him in this spell that sort of led to his sacking last month?
It's a good question.
It isn't.
I mean, I could give you the PR spin, or I could give you my opinion. I'm probably going to give you my opinion. What the heck? Yeah. And hope that the owners aren't listening to this. I just think the club wants to go in one direction, and Mickey has had a sort of a tried and tested way of managing throughout his, I don't know, he's been in management for 10, 15 years, and he's always had a spine of good, strong, experienced players who've got that know-how. They know, the likes of McNulty that he had in the first spell, the likes of Norwood, Cook, that spine of that team, Jay Harris, Scott Davis in goal. They all had experience, of promotions. They were good, honest professionals. They were getting on a bit, but they brought that experience, and then you could build your kind of your youth and your more flair players around that. And I think, last season I couldn't really tell you what the plan was in terms of the recruitment. It was very haphazard. Again, we've sort of tried to splash out a little bit in January to try and paper over the cracks. It never really worked. We brought in Hemmings up front, who did a decent job, but this season he's been hopeless to fair at best. Not really seeing the best of him, really, I don't think. We've tried a number of systems, none of them have really seemed to work. And this way of developing players, I mean, we scrapped our academy about 5-6 years ago, and now we're trying to bring in a developing squad. I mean, I don't fully understand the complete U-turn, and we're trying to develop basically the cast-offs from the likes of Man City, Liverpool, Everton, the local clubs that are big around us, who've got obviously that big pool of talent. But it's whether those clubs, those players have that hunger and that desire to go drop down 3 or 4 divisions and scrap it out, because it's a completely different game to what they've been used to, under 18s, under 21s. League 2 is very, very different, and that's the way that they try to go about it in the summer. And we've got I would say 2 or 3 players who look like they've got good potential, but with that there's been so much inconsistency, and we've like I say, we've not really got going. players have been up and down in terms of their level of performance, and yeah, there didn't seem to be any clear direction. The communication from the club has always been sort of very spun, and football fans, we aren't stupid. Like, we can see, the what's happening on the pitch, and we were told that we were a really attacking team. We had some of the best stats in terms of running and this, that, and the other. It's like, yeah, but we don't score any goals. We don't win any games. And all these statistics can be painted in one form of light, but we aren't getting any results on the pitch. We're getting beat every week. We're not scoring any goals. So you can tell us that we're a really attacking team, but if it's Tranmere 0 every Saturday, then what's the point? The aim of the game is to stick the ball in the net, and we haven't been doing that. And obviously we haven't won any enough games, and that's led to Mickey losing his job.
Yeah, you've kind of sort of in the first two questions answered what my next question was going to be. I was going to ask you about why goals have been so hard to come by. I mean, when you look at your squad list, you're well stocked in terms of numbers in that area, and I think most clubs at this level would have quite happily signed Kane Hemmings last summer. His record at a higher level was fantastic, but he just doesn't seem to have worked out in the same. I live in Liverpool, and I work in Liverpool, and there's a few Tranmere Rovers season ticket holders in my work, and I remember one of them saying, like, he's not the kind of striker you need, and that's part of the problem. You've got him up there, and you don't play anywhere near to his strength, so it seems almost like a waste of a signing, really, with Hemmings.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, sort of they signed him last January, and then obviously in the summer, whoever it was, whether it was James Vaughan, who was our director of football for about 2 weeks, or the owners, or whoever it was, decided that we were going to go down this different recruitment pattern. And we started playing with wing backs at the start of the season. We were going to have players bombing on, sticking crosses in the box. That's not really playing to his strengths. We've tried 4-4-2. Again, I haven't found a pattern of play or a way of playing that suits him. I think he's decent with his kind of back to goal and holding the ball up and bringing others into play. But if you've not got anybody good enough to play around him or get the players close enough to him to be effective, like you say, it's a waste of a signing. And we had Elliot Nevitt at the start of the season. Again, good, honest, Scouse lads, worked hard, but he's not. Well, you ask Crucible, he's not going to score 20 goals a season, not even 15. You'd be lucky to get sort of 5 or 8 out of him a season. We just haven't got that predator in the box who you can rely on to get you the 15, 20, 25 goals that you need to be able to be punching up there at the top of the table. We've not really replaced Vaughan when he retired, sort of, what was that, 2 or 3 years ago. We've not replaced him with like for like. We need a sort of a proven goal scorer, and we've tried sort of papering the cracks with good, honest lads who will work hard, but don't have a clue what to do in front of goal. We brought in Harvey Saunders in January, and bless him, he'll work hard, he'll run his socks off, but he scored 1 goal. You need a much better return than that. And yeah, you're right in saying that we've got plenty of numbers on the squad list, but there's a distinct lack of quality in those numbers, unfortunately, and that's obviously the problem. We don't create enough chances, from the midfield, and when we do, we don't put them away. So that's the kind of the story of the season. Has been very, very frustrating.
Yeah, we've only 7 games to go in the season. I'm guessing there's a chance you're probably going to stick with your caretaker for the rest of the campaign. Is there anyone particularly you'd like to see come in the summer as manager? I mean, I've seen some rumours online about Carl Robinson, which would be an interesting one, certainly, wouldn't it? I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, I like Carl Robinson. I think he's obviously done great great for MK Dons, great at Oxford, and done really good jobs there. Whether he's within our budget, I would be surprised, or if he's willing to take a massive pay cut. Some of the names that we've been linked with, unrealistic, I would say. Like the Cowley brothers and
happens, doesn't
Nigel Adkins. I've even seen like Robbie Fowler. He always gets linked with us
every time.
Yeah, it's just I don't think these are realistic names. I mean, I've got no idea what direction Mr. Palios wants to take us in, which is probably part of the problem. Whether he wants to go with a young, unproven manager and take a bit of a chance, or go down the route of somebody who's tried and tested and knows the division and knows how to get out of it, ideally. But whether somebody like that would want to come and work with, I would suggest maybe a limited budget going forward, is there to be seen. But yeah, it's a big appointment because we're just lingering in League Two. No real sort of not really seeing any sort of ambitions to lift ourselves higher in the last couple of years, and I think it needs somebody just to grab the bull by the throat and give that lift to the fan base that gets the club sort of in an optimistic and a positive frame of mind again. Because for the 3 or 4 years that Mickey was with us in the first spell, there was nothing but positivity. The crowds were good, the atmosphere was good at the games, and it's just flipped on its head. Of late, going to the game is, there's not that buzzing atmosphere because the football is not good. And I know, they both go hand in hand, but it just needs somebody to come in and give everybody a lift. And who that's going to be, God only knows. But I would be more than happy with Carl Robinson if he's around and wants to take a big pay cut.
It's interesting to say about, it's not great to go down and watch you at the moment, but fair play to you guys. You've sold over 500 for the game on Good Friday, which is we now know, including home sales, it's going to be an over 10k crowd, which is hopefully will create a good atmosphere. You guys obviously looking to spoil the party. Who are the danger men that our fans should look out for? And it seems ridiculous. I said exactly the same thing to the Walsall guy when I spoke to him, and he had sort of the same reaction of almost laughing out. I'm like, look, I'm trying to give us an idea of who might be a threat on Good Friday.
Right, slim pickings, to be honest, Lee. But I do like our fullbacks. Our fullbacks are probably our best players, which says a lot.
Douglas Cogley's good, isn't he?
Cogley and what's his name? The left back. Can't remember his blooming name.
Robinson or Bristow? I'm looking at the list here.
Ethan Bristow. Sorry. Temporary mind blown then. Bristow. I'd say both fullbacks get forward well. They can defend as well. They've got good pace, decent delivery into the box as well. So they're kind of the most creative players, which again says a lot. We are missing the likes of Kieran Morris and Josh Hawkes. They're two big players for us, and obviously not. I don't think they'll be available at the weekend. But in terms of in front of goal, you probably haven't got too much to worry about with Saunders. Jake Burton's a young lad who might be involved, and I kind of hope he is given a chance. We've got 7 games where we've got nothing really to prove, nothing to play for. I think giving some of the young lads in the squad, particularly him, who's not really had a run of games. I think he's probably worth a shout. He's got to be worth a shout over Joel Mumbongo anyway. Give the young lads a bit of time to try and prove themselves. I'm not sure if his contract runs out in the summer as well. But yeah, just give him a go and see if he's good enough for this level. Because we haven't really seen too much of him. But he's a promising young player. young forward. He has actually scored a goal as well for us this season. So, yeah, in terms of goal scoring, he's probably the most liveliest. And I hope he gets himself a game on Friday.
I've just double checked there for you. He's out of contract in the summer, so
he is. Yeah, so
he gets a little run out in that one.
Maybe. Yeah, that's it. I mean, the young. Sorry, Lee.
That's right.
So he's one of the ones that probably the last of the ones that came through the academy sort of system before the plug got pulled. So, he's kind of the last sort of homegrown talent, if you like, that we've actually brought through all the way, from the schoolboy levels to the YTs and obviously now professional. So it would be nice to see him actually given an opportunity to prove himself. And if his contract's up in the summer, then give him 6 or 7 games to see what he can do. I would not be against that at all.
No. I won't keep you on any longer then, Paul, because I'm sure it's not much fun talking about Tranmere Rovers right now. But before we finish up, we always ask for a prediction. You guys don't score many goals at the moment. We've not scored in 4 games. I said this to the Walsall guy. This is weird because I've said this to the Walsall guy, but people listening to the pod are going to hear the Walsall bit afterwards. So if they're confused, I recorded with the Walsall guy first. But I said to the Walsall guy, we don't score many goals. At the moment, we've won 4 games without scoring. You don't score many. What are you going to go for on the prediction?
Oh man, I mean, I'd like to think that we've got a goal in us. We do one. No, I think it's obviously, like you say. Shout out to Carlisle for reducing the prices, which I think has helped ticket sales.
Massively.
And I don't think we'd have sold 500 tickets if it was 20 quid a pop or more.
Yeah.
So reducing the tickets to a tenner has obviously attracted more people than wouldn't have ordinarily bought one. But I wish so. We're going to have a good following. Hopefully, Dorsey and Parky can get a song out of us. Good luck to them on that. But it's hard to be positive when you've seen so much dross over the course of the season. It's a difficult place to go at the best of times. Carlisle, I don't think I do remember us getting a few good victories up there, but I can't see us. I mean, if I was the ultimate optimist, I'd say a draw, a scoring draw, 1-1, but probably sort of a 1 or 2-0 to yourselves, to be honest. But hopefully, as I say, Parky and Dorsey can get a performance out of us, and I think that's all we want is 7 games. Last 7 games is a bit of effort, a bit of positivity going into whoever's going to take over, and obviously the summer and next season. It's just kind of trying to build a bit of momentum going forward. So I'd like to hope that the players have got something to prove at least, whether they're wanting to move on or otherwise. But probably a narrow defeat is the best we can hope for.
We've had many people say that this season, to be fair, so there you go. Paul, thanks for your time, and genuinely all the best for the rest of the season after Good Friday, and really do hope that Tranmere pick themselves up, because we've said this to a few of the Northern clubs, and we've seen these Northern clubs start to disappear, and we want clubs like Tranmere and obviously Rochdale are really struggling now to do well, really, because it's better for the Football League, in my opinion, and you look at you like to see Salford. Like Salfords and Harrogates that just don't bring the crowds. You need
Forest Greens and all these. Exactly. Stevenage. You don't want a league full of them.
No, exactly that. Cheers, Paul, and all the best.
Yeah, all the best, Lee. Cheers, mate.
Yeah, big shout out again to Paul for giving up his time to speak to us, because, like I said, I can't imagine it's much fun to watch Tranmere there. And I know from speaking to you, probably know a few Tranmere fans as well, Mike. It's not a great place to go and watch football this season by the sounds of things, is it?
No, and there are clubs that have it a lot worse off, but we were saying before we started recording, weren't we, that being in a relegation dogfight is at least a little bit exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last season for us, like that second half of the season was like genuinely, like, it was nervous, but it was exciting. You went to games knowing, this is exciting. This. when you go into games where you've basically, the last 10 games, they've basically no chance of promotion realistically, no chance of being relegated. It just must be so dull. I can't think of anything worse, really. Well, going down, I suppose, is worse, I guess. But no, it's not much fun for them for this game. But there you go. But fair play to them. They've sold 644 tickets in advance, which is some. We don't want to be going back and mocking Stevenage and stuff like that about their following game, because we'll just end up getting into trouble, and I can't be arsed dealing with the fallout of it. But it tells you what a bigger club Tranmere are, aren't they? I know it's £10 a ticket, but still, Good Friday, nothing to play for, bringing that many fans.
Yeah, brilliant. Definitely. And, it's not as if... I mean, I don't think there's many Tranmere fans who have Carlisle as a ground to tick off, because we've played each other that many times over sort of recent years.
Yeah.
It's a cracking turnout from them. It really is. Yeah. Sometimes as well, it's very good that we've sold a lot of tickets, but sometimes you need the away fans to make a bit of noise to get the home fans to make noise as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't want to, tiny paltry away end there and struggle to get an atmosphere going. I think that was an issue with 10k for MK, wasn't it? The Milton Keynes Dons aren't exactly a massively supported club, so they didn't bring a particularly raucous away following that day. So it worked out better for them as it turned out. But yeah, so fantastic effort from them. Fair play. It's interesting. I'm looking on their forum beforehand, and a lot of their fans were talking about how good an away day this is. Actually, they're really looking forward to it. A lot of them are like, great. Even though we've got nothing to play for, it's one of the best away days we've got for the season, so let's go up and enjoy it. So fair play. So it's a 3 o'clock kickoff on Good Friday this game. Referee for the game is Thomas Kirk from Greater Manchester. It's his first season as an EFL referee. He's taken charge of 30 games so far this season, handing out 103 yellows and 2 red cards. Last season he handed out 16 yellows and no red cards in 7 games. I have a feeling he might have been like a linesman, like at a higher level maybe, and now they're moving him on to being a referee, possibly.
Or could have been Women's Super League as well.
Could have actually, yeah. You do find that sometimes when you look through it, actually, it's quite often. So last United game he took charge of was the 3-3 draw at Harrogate in November. We were both there, weren't we?
Yes.
Yes. And he also took charge of the opening game of the season against Crawley Town. Another game you were at, Mike. So all 3 games he's refereed the season you've been at. So
yeah, and I can't remember much terrible.
No, I mean we just didn't play very well at Harrogate, did we? So it's not he didn't. There was no like, oh god, he's given an appalling decision there. It was kind of like just we struggled towards a draw in that game. So there you go. Head-to-head record, 94th meeting between the two sides. United have won 37, 18 have been a draw, and 38 wins for Tranmere. So very tight in terms of the head-to-heads. Very well balanced in that sense. Tranmere Rovers then, Mike. Before we sort of talk a little bit generally about the game, their squad. It's interesting, obviously, listen to what Paul had to say there. He's talking about the fact that they've gone down a path of trying to... They've sort of scrapped their academy, so they're trying to sign a lot of youngsters that have been cast off by some of the big Premier League clubs. There's some clubs do this option now, don't they, rather than having an academy. And it's okay if you're like a Brentford, isn't it, where you can pick off the very best of those ones. But when you're left with the dregs, sometimes you find they've been in that academy for so long at the highest level. Actually, they've just been basically meat to fill the squad, haven't they? And the quality is not even good enough to be at League 2 level, is it?
No, I mean, obviously they do have Liverpool and Everton just down the road, which is where they'll be getting most of them from. But we've seen it so many times that players from the under-21 setup, they're not built for men's football. They're just, they don't get the sort of football and education that you'd maybe get from someone who's worked their way up through non-league or something.
It's a tough one for them, isn't it? I mean, look, when you look at the summer signings, I mean, actually, when you look back at it now, it's not actually a massive surprise they struggle, because there's not a massive amount of quality in what they brought in last summer, is there?
Well, it's not just brought in; it's what's gone out is the thing. I think Peter Clark going was massive, really. Yeah.
Although to be fair,
I think they released him, didn't they?
Yeah, to be fair with him, he's 41 now, and he didn't last long at Walsall. He's at Oldham now, so show you he's winding down his career now, basically, isn't it? I think it's fair to say.
But their defence always looked a lot more solid with him in it than without him in it.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the players they lost, actually, you're right, in terms of the players released, a lot of experience went there. Callum McManaman, Jay Spearing, Knight Percival, Joe Maguire, Nicky Maynard, Manny Dizawero, and Callum MacDonald. All players with fairly decent Football League pedigree there. To lose all that, and then you sign in the likes of, some of these names, Ben Hockenhull, Reece McClear, they're from Brentford and Norwich, Ethan Bristow, who's apparently done quite well from Reading, to be fair. And then going down trying to pick up Luke Robinson on loan from Wigan, and Joel Mumbongo from Burnley, who by all accounts, he was quite disparaging of him, Paul, to be fair. And, the lad on loan from Liverpool, they had on loan last season, but he didn't really pull up any trees, did he? It's kind of like you look and you think, bringing back Paul Lewis from Northampton was the one you looked at this summer before. That's a decent signing. Maybe John Nolan from Bristol Rovers, but
yeah, well, they had a well-known defender to us, obviously Darnell Samouk in the summer, didn't he?
Yeah,
but he went back in January and then wound up going to Morecambe.
Yeah, so they obviously wanted to train him out a bit slightly higher level, albeit I suspect probably that as much as he's tried out at a high level, he's playing in a poorer team there probably. So it's a bit of a tough one, isn't it?
But it's getting more work done, I suppose.
So certainly is. Even the January editions, Brad Walker from Port Vale, fair play. That's a fairly decent signing. He's not a bad player. But Logan Chalmers from Dundee United, I don't know anything about him. Harvey Saunders is one that we quite fancied in the summer, didn't we, for Bristol Rovers? It's not worked out for him there. He signed for them. Regan Hendry's an alright player from Forest Green, and then another lad from Newcastle on there. He's kind of there's nothing really to excite you there. Even you look at the January departures. Hockenhull's gone out on loan to Warrington Rylands already, and a couple of lads gone to Bootle. But then they lost Elliot Nevitt to Crewe, and I know he's not going to score as many goals, but he'll run all day, won't he? His work rate's fantastic, and it always felt a bit of a weird one letting him go, because looking through the actual squad, Mike, in terms of who's been there, obviously long-term stuff like that, but they're very good defensively, and yet they've only got, going by this, 6 defenders on the books? I know Brad Walker can play there as well, maybe Leo Connor, but they're not well stocked in defence. No. In attack, they've got quite a few players there. Just the lack of quality is the problem, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I remember saying in the pre-season preview that apart from Kane Hemmings, I couldn't quite see where the goals were going to come from for them.
Well, I think I have a feeling I predicted them to do well based on I thought they would bring a striker in possibly. And
I think we all predicted that they'd certainly be top half. Yeah, but it just because to be honest, they always have been top half pretty much, and because they're a big club at this level, but I think this season just hasn't gone right. And I think the biggest thing is lack of experience. They got rid of some big experienced heads, and they don't have a lot in there now.
Hemmings is literally the only experienced striker there, isn't it? And from speaking to people I work with who see Dick Olds and go watch Tranmere every week, they say don't play to his strengths. Almost a pointless signing because you don't work. He's very good at his back to goal and hold the ball up and stuff, and they just don't play to that way. As a result, he's made to look a poorer player, and I think he's out of contract. And someone might be wrong on that, but I can't imagine him staying on. To be honest, if that's the basis. But there you go. Yes, it's a tough one for them. Last time out they drew 1-1 with Harrogate Town, and Harrogate are a bit of a wishy side, aren't they? They can have brilliant games, they can have awful ones. Armstrong
against us.
But yeah, particularly against us, the good ones. Armstrong gave them an early lead after 4 minutes, and then Tranmere's goal came from a free kick that hit the post and then came back off the keeper as an own goal. And watching the YouTube highlights, they could have been 3-1 down in this game. They really didn't look great, and it's got me a bit nervous actually now because I'm thinking, this just has them sitting back was dominating them and nicking one on the break, all written all over it, hasn't it? Really, but yeah, when you look at it in terms of stats, I picked a few out here. We've said it before. Their problem is goals. They just don't score goals. Only Rochdale, Gillingham, Colchester and Crewe have scored less than the 38 goals that Tranmere have scored this season in the league. And defensively, though, they're really sound. They've conceded 40 goals, and that's only 3 more than United. And putting them 8th best defence in the division. So yeah, it seemed kind of inevitable that Mickey Mellon was going to go, didn't it, I think?
Yeah, I think so.
I think he was probably a bit fed up, wasn't he? I think he wasn't really getting what he wanted.
No, but I think he'll probably be back in a couple of years anyway.
That's the way it works, isn't it? Do you think he's the new John Sheridan with Oldham Athletic, is he?
Well, the new Ronnie Moore at Tranmere, he was there a few times, wasn't he?
Yeah, of course, yeah. John Sheridan's due another spell at Oldham now, isn't he? Surely.
I think so.
But yeah, so it kind of just feels like their season's petering out. They're in about 50 points now. I think they can't be relegated. They can't be going down. It can't be much fun really to watch. I think it's fair to say. This weekend's game, though, just before we go on to talk about the Walsall game, just as we're recording on Thursday afternoon. This is going to go up pretty much straight after we finish recording. I'm going to put it together quickly. I'm just looking here at the final sales. 11,600 home fans is the final sales. 644 Tranmere tickets sold for their end.
From what I've seen, the paddock might be sold out. Possibly,
yeah, that seems to be a suggestion because there's no mention of it on the club's tweets. So basically they've finished on 12,244 sales in advance, and they usually get a fair few walk-ups. And the weather's supposed to be nice tomorrow, so there'll bound to be a few fans go, you know what? There's no Premier League games on telly. Why don't I go down and watch the game this weekend?
Yeah.
That's the hope, isn't it?
And do you know what? If we can only retain 50% of those extra fans for the next couple of games, that'd be incredible. We'll be getting gates of like 9,000.
Yeah, that's what the aim is. Realistically, we're not going to get the same crowd unless we can secure promotion against Salford, which looks unlikely now because of the last few games. It's going to go down to the wire, I think. But in terms of crowds, it now means that the attendance will eclipse the attendance against Bury on December 1994, which is the game was my first game, the famous 3-0 win.
Glory hunter.
I know. It eclipsed the Darlow Christmas game in 2005 as well. Now, I'm going to quickly check this because I've got a list up because Jeff Jackson, who we've already mentioned a few times this show, he's got a brilliant website basically that basically tells you all the Car United attendances down there, the biggest attendances of all time for us, going down to round about the 10,000 mark. Basically, the plus 10,000 crowds. By my reckoning, I'm going to do a very quick head count here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's going to be, as it stands, I think it will be the 5th biggest attendance at a 4th tier level that we've ever had.
That's good.
So it needs another 200 or so to eclipse Lincoln City, so it should eclipse that.
Yeah.
So that would take it to the 4th biggest we've had at this level. And then we've got a game against Chester in 1961-62 that had 12,660 there. So basically another 400 to eclipse that to become the 3rd highest, which would be a hell of an achievement to do that. I think it's going to struggle to beat the Torquay game maybe in 05-06. It might get close though. That was 13,467. Because you've got to allow for the fact there might be another 100 or so Tranmere fans travel up possibly on the day as well. So that's the aim. We're aiming basically to have the 2nd highest attendance we've ever had at 4th tier level, because the highest is against Workington in 1963 in the old Division 4, where we won 3-1. I think it was one of the Christmas games, and it was 16,347. Little fact on that for the younger fans. That season, obviously, that we were playing Workington, the Cumbrian derbies with big attendances. The game at Workington was actually a bigger attendance than the game at Brunton Park. But United finished that season in 2nd place, having scored 113 goals in 46 games. We finished on the same number of points as Gillingham, and we missed out on goal average. On goal difference, we would have won by about 30 plus goals or something like that, something stupid like that, because we scored 113 and conceded about 59. They only scored about 60, but they only let in about 30, Gillingham. So that's the way it worked back then, sadly. But there you go. So we're closing in. It looks like we've got the 4th highest attendance possibly at that level. In fact, it looks like it probably will be the 3rd. It's whether we can beat that Torquay game from Simo's season. Amazing if we could do that.
Incredible, yeah.
Absolutely amazing. So there you go. Right, now time to look to the Walsall game. Again, we've got another behind enemy lines section for this one. We spoke to Tom from the One Pod Beyond Walsall podcast. Similar to Paul, but slightly cheerier than Paul's was, because they've had an FA Cup run this season at least, and they've had that to enjoy, as we found out to our cost. Yes, you know, you're welcome, says Thomas Hurley. So yeah, what do we talk with Tom? Why their form has collapsed since their FA Cup 4th round defeat. the impact that Danny Johnson going back to Mansfield has had, which probably explains why the form dropped, and whether Mickey Flynn or Mike Flynn, is the man to take them into next season. So for the second of this week's doubleheader of Behind Enemy Line sections, we've got Tom from One Pod Beyond, the Walsall podcast. Tom, high expectations in the summer with the arrival of Michael Finn in the second half of last season. And you actually look quite well positioned for a run at the playoffs, sort of mid-January. And then you went out of the FA Cup against Leicester City. What on earth has gone wrong over these last 3 months since then?
Oh, well, opinions probably are pretty unified on that. I think the loss of Danny Johnson, obviously top scorer, who went back to Mansfield, and Liam Bennett, probably our other best player from the first half of the season, who went back to Cambridge. And since then, our form has fallen off a cliff, unfortunately. I mean, we've struggled with injuries as well. Flynn often quotes the fact that 30% of his budget has been on the treatment table this season. We've had a lot of players, out through injury, but I think people are starting to sort of feel a bit fed up with that. It's a valid excuse, but it probably papers over a lot of cracks that go beyond that as well. So, if fans could see the team progressing in terms of a playing style or a sort of plan B without Johnson and Bennett, that would be one thing. But it's been woeful since the turn of the year, basically. Like you say, since we went out of the cup with one game in 17. We're still relatively hard to beat. We've drawn a huge amount of games this season, but we can't turn those draws into wins. The fan base is getting a bit frustrated, to be honest.
It's interesting you mentioned about the injuries there, because for probably about 90% of this season, we've had 18 players to pick from on most match days. And it's only this week, I think last week even, that Paul Simpson said to us that we've finally got 26 players out training on the training pitch. It's just come all at once at the end of the season, so we're kind of hoping it helps with running. But it goes to show you can do it, I suppose, can't you, with injuries, if you just put together a solid team and get going.
Absolutely. And Carlisle are the example that I use when we talk on the podcast about managers having to deal with injuries. Paul Simpson's done a brilliant job of using the resources that he has. Unfortunately, either Michael Flynn hasn't done that, or he didn't recruit well enough in the summer to be able to put out, an 11 that could replicate the form when we had our two loan players, for the first half of the season. And it just goes to show, you do need a plan B if you're going to put all your eggs in the basket of two players who can theoretically go back to their parent clubs in January. Then you need to be ready for that, and we weren't.
A lot of you actually answered my second question about Danny Johnson there, basically him being the reason why you struggled so much. It just goes to show, doesn't it? But I think a lot of people looked at your January editions and they saw that you brought in Jamil Matt and Matty Stevens from Forest Green Rovers, and everyone thought, oh, that's the strike partnership that did so well at Forest Green last year. Surely that's going to work. It doesn't seem to have quite clicked. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, on paper, it was a fantastic, replacement for Johnson. Not one striker, but two who scored 47 goals between them last season. But, that's what it was. It was on paper. And unfortunately, both had been either injured or out of the team, not playing very much. And it's shown, really, that they've taken a long time to get up to speed. Matt got a bad shoulder injury, which kept him out for almost 6 weeks, I think. He's just about coming back now. But again, they've flattered to deceive, really. But then again, we've not been creating a huge amount of chances for them. It's not like they've been missing, boatloads of chances. They've either been out of the team or we've not been creating a huge amount for them. And it's that lack of creativity that has been frustrating this season, I think.
You mentioned creativity. Someone who was quite creative at times for us now in your squad this season, Joe Riley. He's had a tough old time of it with you, hasn't he? I think he only made his debut a few weeks ago, something like that, I think it was. I mean, it's bizarre because, he was offered a new deal by us, and the rumours are that basically he'd already been tapped up by you guys before the end of the season, because Simo said that there was one player who told him he'd already spoken to and agreed a deal with another club, which Simo said, well, you're technically not allowed to do that. He never named the player, but I think everyone guessed it was him. And there was a bit of concern as we'd miss him, and we haven't really. So, I mean, I suppose you guys haven't had really a chance to see what you can do yet.
No, and, he's come in and he's done well. I mean, I think he's shown the quality that would have been a decent addition. But, he's been out for almost the entire season. Was one of those players who came in. Oisin McKenty was another who came in from Newcastle and barely kicked a ball for the first sort of 4 or 5 months. We signed quite a few players in the summer, and about 50% of them, have barely played sort of 5 or 6 games this season. So, the injuries, we've really struggled this season. I think people are looking forward to what Riley can bring next season, because the cameos he's had so far have been good, but it's probably, again, a bit too early before the end of the season to sort of say that it's been a success, because it's been sort of dominated by his time out through injury, unfortunately.
You've got 2 other ex-Carlisle players in your squad, Hayden White and Brandon Comley. Tell us a bit about how those two have done for you guys. I mean, White's been there a couple of years now, I think, hasn't he? Comley, I think, came at the start of the season. And White was one who was on loan with us from Bolton, and he looked raw at the time, I think it's fair to say. I think he's grown up a bit since then. And Comley actually looked a useful player on loan from QPR. We nearly re-signed him last season, but Simo decided not to. So how are those two getting on?
Yeah, Comley's grown into the season, especially when Kinsella was out with injury. He sort of stepped up into the holding midfield role and did pretty well, really. I think he's probably one of the players who's performed better this season. He didn't have the greatest start, and I think a lot of fans are still a bit averse to him and Kinsella both starting, because it seems a bit conservative when we play 2 holding midfielders, which Flynn has done quite a bit this season. But Comley's done okay. Hayden White, like you say, he's been here for a couple of seasons now. So a player who's divided fans a little bit. Sometimes he plays as one of the 3 centre halves. Sometimes he plays at right wing back. But all that's kind of been a bit overshadowed by the fact that he was out of the team for the game at the weekend. And when Michael Flynn was asked why he wasn't even on the bench, he replied, "That's between me and Hayden." So very, very much, rumours of a falling out. You would have to read into that what you will. But yes, it would have seemed there's a bit of friction behind the scenes. So we'll have to wait and see whether he starts either of the games over Easter.
It's an interesting one, because when we had him on loan, towards the end of his loan, we played a game away at Portsmouth, and he got sent off what I can only describe as an assault of a challenge. Like, most of the fans around me even were like, what is he doing? There's like literally, there's no need to go in like he did. It's a horrible tackle it was, and I think we barely saw him after that. It was a strange one. Let's talk about your FA Cup run. You had some exciting games in that, didn't you? Much to our downfall, I suppose, is the way of putting it, with that game at the Bescott Stadium. We should make this game quite lively, actually, after what happened at the end of that one. But you had a great game against Stockport as well, but you won it late, didn't you? And then that chance to play Leicester at home. Yeah,
I mean, it's so frustrating because, in yourselves and Stockport, we've probably beat 2 of the better teams in League 2 this season, which shows we can mix it or we could mix it, when we had a full complement of players. The game at Stockport in particular was, a superb win, given their form, particularly at home this season. They scored a late equaliser, and then we went down the other end and, rather than shutting up shop, managed to win it in the last minute. So, we got that game against Leicester as a reward. Sort of didn't quite do ourselves justice in that game. It was a great occasion. First time Bescott had been sold out for about 5 or 6 years, I think. And it was, it was a great occasion, but we didn't perhaps do ourselves justice in the game. Although, we had quite a few players out, including Johnson and Kinsella, and it was a sign of things to come, really. And I'm not one of these people who sort of subscribes to the idea that after a decent cup run, the players switch off. I don't think Flynn would let them do that, but at the same time, it has coincided with a really poor run of form. Let's be honest.
Yeah, Flynn. So let's talk about him. Is he still the man to lead you into next season? Because there seems to be some doubt. It's a strange, wasn't it, for a manager who does so well, especially with the hometown club in that long spell. It can sometimes be hard for them to sort of transpose what they've done there onto another club, can't it? And it seems like he's struggling to maybe make that impact at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, we're certainly hoping he's going to replicate his Newport form, because it's quite interesting how it's mirrored his time at Walsall so far. In his first season at Newport, he managed to keep them up, sort of massively against the odds. Yeah. In his first season with us, he kept us up when it looked, pretty dicey at one stage. When we lost at Scunthorpe away, I think we were a few points off the bottom two, and he came in and turned it around after Matt Taylor was sacked. In his second season at Newport, he started really well. Then they dropped off, won I think 4 of the last 20 games that season, and finished mid-table, which is, let's be honest, exactly what has happened with us. And then in his third season, he took them into the playoffs. So, we're sort of desperately clinging on to the hope that he's going to repeat that at Walsall next season. The team should be entirely his players. There won't be any legacy players left. He'll be able to shape the team itself. Hopefully, we'll have better luck with injuries. And I think, most fans are happy to let him, have another go next season. But if we start poorly, after the run we've been on this season, make no mistake, he will be under big pressure. And I think a lot of, certainly some fans have been worried that he may, potentially jump ship before he's pushed. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but given the Darryl Clark situation, when Clark left us because he couldn't see us improving and thought Port Vale was a better offer, you wonder whether Flynn, given his, he'd been linked with jobs in the Championship before he joined us, whether he thinks that it's potentially better for him to go and take his chances elsewhere than continue at Walsall, because we have been a bit of a manager's graveyard in recent years.
It's one of those ones, isn't it? You don't want to end up being this place where you just have a manager for a season and then you change, you just keep doing that. That's why we're quite glad we got Paul Simpson on a 3-year deal. I mean, we're lucky in that, he's a hometown lad, and it's just a really good fit for him. And just sometimes you just need something like that, don't you, I guess? But
yeah, and if you look back to, our most successful manager, possibly our only successful manager of the last 7 or 8 years, was Dean Smith, who went on a couple of horrendous winless runs, 15 games, 17 games, where he didn't win a game. We persevered with him, and eventually he came good, and we were very unlucky not to go up to the Championship in 2015-16. So, again, a little bit of clutching at straws, hoping that it can, history will repeat itself and Flynn can have the same sort of trajectory as Smith. But the difference, I think, is that under Smith, we saw a manager who knew what he was trying to achieve. And we saw in the playing style that, we were going for, playing a certain way. Yeah. Eventually it came good. Under Flynn, I think a lot of fans are just a little bit worried that, there doesn't seem to be a plan at the moment.
Yeah. So your season, I think it's fair to say, is pretty much over in terms of, you've got no realistic hope of a playoff place and you're not in danger of relegation. What's your hopes for the remainder of the campaign and then into the summer ahead?
I think a top half finish has to be the priority. I think, as a sort of a totem of the season. I think on the pod at the start of the season, we said, our objective should be a top half finish. And then, kick on next season if we can't do better than that. And then, I mean, beyond that, testing out players, obviously evaluating who's going to get a contract and who isn't. I kind of think Flynn's probably made his mind up, to be honest. But I think the priority has to be winning games at home, because we've been so poor in 2023 they're desperately trying to sell, early bird season tickets for next season to give the club a bit of a cash boost. At the moment, people don't have any incentive to do that, really. The prices have gone up. The prices of food and beer have gone up. Most clubs posting financial results seem to have made losses over the last few years. We know exceptions. So, if you are gonna put prices up, you have to give people something on the pitch to come in through the turnstiles for, and we need to do that in the next sort of 7-8 games. Just try and give people a bit of hope for next season.
Yeah. So quickly before we do predictions, just looking ahead to the game on Monday. Who are the? It sounds a weird thing to say, Goff. You've had this horrendous run of draws, and it's obviously not been too exciting. Who are the danger men to watch out for in your squad? Who are the people we should keep an eye out for?
Isaac Hutchinson has just been rewarded for some decent performances this season with a new contract. So he's one who will definitely be here next season. He's sort of plays in the number 10 role. He's chipped in. I think he's got 5 goals, 5 assists this season. So he is a threat. He's been, one of the few bright sparks after Christmas. Donovan Daniels will probably win Player of the Season. He's been excellent at the heart of the defence. We don't concede many goals. The problem is we don't score many either. Beyond that, it's thin pickings. I think Tom Knowles is another one who sort of divides fans. Probably should get more goals and assists than he does, given how often he has a shot. He's a live wire, but again, his performances have tailed off after Christmas. But they're probably the three main players to watch.
Well, it's interesting you say about not scoring goals, because we had been scoring goals to the last 4 games, and now we've got 4 games without scoring. So I'm going to ask what your prediction is now. not pushing you any general direction there, but what do you reckon for the game?
I'm going to have to say a draw. Statistically, it's the result that we love at the moment. And given you haven't scored for 4 games, let's go 0-0.
I think you're the first person this season to predict a 0-0, and for once, I couldn't possibly disagree with the way things are going for us at the moment. It's just the way luck is. Well, Tom, I wish you all the best for the rest of the season after the game this weekend, and I'm just praying that Thomas Shirley doesn't go running out of his box this time and stays back in his area and deals with it from that position, because I don't think he lived down that mistake for quite a while after that. But he's playing well now, so there you go.
It's probably one of the few ways we might actually score on Monday. So let's wait and see.
Okay. Cheers, Tom. Yeah, big thanks to Tom there again for giving up his time. It feels a bit of a difference to Tranmere, doesn't it? In that you feel like there's a few decent players still in that Tranmere squad, and they maybe just need to add a few additions. They brought in those 2 strikers in January. It didn't quite work out. We'll talk about that when we talk about their squad. But it kind of feels like with the manager they've got in place, if they give him a bit of time, because his first full season at Newport, he struggled a bit there. They finished lower mid-table then. So the season after they got in the playoffs. So maybe it's just a case of him rebuilding a bit there, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that was certainly the case like last summer. I think that I kind of think almost like us really, where this season was a bit of a rebuild and almost ignore your progress this season, but it's next season where you're really going to be expecting results.
And we've just got lucky, haven't we? Just everything clicked in there basically. We're a year ahead of schedule, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah.
In terms of that, but there you go. So this game takes place on Easter Monday. It's a 3 p.m. kickoff at the Bescott Stadium. The Poundland Bescott Stadium, I do apologise to give it its full title. What a brilliant bit of a sponsorship that is. Fair play. They must have got some decent money for it, because everyone suddenly goes, "Oh, the Poundland Stadium." I don't think they're going to complain if they're getting a decent bit of wonga for it, but there you go. Yes, so we're both going down to this one, aren't we?
Yeah.
Nice little journey down the M6, because all the trains are knackered on Easter Monday, annoyingly, but there you go. Yes, so for this one, referee is Declan Bourne from Nottinghamshire. It's his 3rd season as an EFL referee, and he's taken charge of 24 games so far this season, handing out 89 yellows and 8 red cards. My word. A red card every 3 games, basically. So,
well, it's a shame that, what's his name, may well not be playing.
Well,
Who am I thinking of?
we'll talk about him. Hayden White. So
Hayden White, yeah.
Sounds like, for those who've... Cause I don't know if people skip the away fan bits sometimes. I do wonder if they probably skip our bits, to be honest, and just listen to the away fan bits. But Tom did mention the fact that Hayden White, by all accounts, has had a bit of a fallout with Michael Flynn. He was left out of the matchday squad last week, so he might not feature at all in this one. Yes, so last season he handed out 97 yellows and 2 red cards in 24 games, so certainly a lot more popular in terms of his red cards this season. The last United game he took charge of was a 2-1 win over Tranmere Rovers in the FA Cup at Brunton Park earlier this season. Don't remember anything particularly controversial in that game, so...
It's all good.
Yeah, that's nice to hear. Head-to-head record is the 66th meeting between the two sides. United have won 20 have been a draw, and the Saddlers have won 25. So, Mike, let's have a look through there. Sort of some of the transfers they've done. And because actually, you look at it, hell of a lot of players coming in the summer, didn't they?
Yeah,
they had a real sort of refresh of the squad. Probably hasn't quite had the impact they'd hoped, though, has it?
No. Yeah, it's. I mean, you're always going to struggle to get that many players to sort of gel straight away.
Yeah.
And sort of touched on it before. Maybe this summer they'll just need to sort of touch up around the edges and go again next season. But yeah, it's been bizarre. Obviously, Joe Riley's injury problems probably didn't help them. But there you go.
Yeah, that's obviously caused them a few problems. I mean, in terms of the ones they brought in, the biggest problem they've got is Danny Johnson scored a lot of goals for them, didn't he?
Yeah.
In January, yeah. A big part for them. Liam Bennett, by all accounts, who was on loan from Cambridge, has had an excellent first half of the season. And they lost both of them in January, went back to the clubs they were at, and they just couldn't replace them, could they?
No, exactly. And you could see that happening a mile off, to be honest, with the Johnson loan. You're on a hiding to nothing. If he doesn't score goals, well, that's no good to anyone. And if he does score goals, he was always going to go back in January, so...
I think they tried to sort out a permanent deal, didn't they? But I think Mansfield messed them about a little bit. I think Mansfield looked and thought Walsall are closing in on the playoff places, weren't they? So they were like, right, let's knacker them at the very least and take one of our compets to start the game. And it worked a treat, And they've barely used Danny. I think he scored twice, since he's gone back, They've not really used him because that's, by all accounts, Clough is not a massive fan of his now. So it's a strange one, isn't it? But there you go. I mean, in terms of the ones they brought in, I mean... much for muches. Joe Riley's the one obviously that stands out to us. Brandon Comley as well. But the rest of them, Isaac Hutchinson's done quite well from Derby. He's just signed a new 2-year deal with them, so I think he's one they really, really like. Andy Williams has been about the block, but he's certainly getting on now. He's 36, 37, I think, something like that. So he's won promotion from this level before, but obviously it's not really worked out for him so far. And in terms of we did say though the ones that went out, there wasn't really anyone there that you thought, oh God, we're really missing out on him leaving, is there really? It's kind of just like... No. Yeah, Ozadabi maybe going to Bradford, but he's done nothing at Bradford either, so they're probably not too good about that. And in terms of January additions, that's where it's interesting, isn't it? Because you lose Danny Johnson and you bring in a strike pair who got 40-plus goals between them at this level for the title winning side.
Let them go, really.
Forest Green just seemed to be a really in transition, don't they? They lost... 3 key players in the last summer in your 2 fullbacks, Wilson and Cadden, yeah. And I think they lost another player, one of the midfielders possibly, and they never really replaced them. And that the game was so focused around those wing backs getting forward, it was really tough for them, wasn't it? So as a result, the strikers didn't score much. They went out of favour, and the new manager clearly didn't fancy them much. And as a result, Jamil Matt's gone on a permanent deal to Forest Green, and Matty Stevens is on loan there at the moment. And they've not really had the impact, have they, in terms of what you'd hope for?
No, I think Forest Green had the whole team set up in such a way, with the wing backs bombing forward and getting balls in the box for them, and I don't think Walsall quite have it set up for them.
No, it's not really working in that sense so far for them, is it? It's a tough one. So yeah, those two came in. I mean, look at the squad again. Very thin in defence. There's not a massive amount of options, is there? Really? I mean, Donovan Daniels, I think, is someone that they really rate highly. It sounds like he's going to be their player of the season. So he's someone who's done well. Osin, I can't pronounce it. It's a Welsh name, isn't it? Anyway, Mackenzie, who they got from Newcastle United. he's not really played a huge amount either. So they've relied heavily on what they've had in defence. They lost Liam Bennett, obviously, and then Manny Mont is a big player for them. Again, they've got a good defence. They don't concede a huge amount of goals, do they?
No.
So it's a weird one. Into midfield. Well, let's talk about Joe Riley. He's just not had much luck there, has he?
No. It didn't even sound like an injury. It was some issue with bone fragments in his knee or something.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those injuries that that you don't hear about very often, and I think that was the problem, wasn't it? So it was one of those ones that they're kind of like, it's not affecting that badly, but you can't really do anything for months and months, and that's the problem. And he's only just come back recently, and by all accounts, he's looked lively in some of his cameos, but have we missed him?
No.
It's a resounding no, isn't it? It's a very resounding no.
I was a big fan of his, but I mean, some of the players that we've had at right wing back this season, even if you're to look at Jack Ellis, the game time that we've given him and the development that's given him, I think has been great for us.
He would have stunted Ellis's development potentially there. He would have potentially stunted Charles' development in midfield if he'd gone back to playing in there as well. And I think Charles, he's just a bit bigger and stronger, and his set pieces have made a big difference when he's played as well. And it kind of feels like, it was the right. Obviously, we wanted to keep him, but it wasn't a major loss when he went, was it? Really? So
no, exactly.
Can't exactly be too gutted for him. I feel sorry for him because, I'm sure he's gone there with big expectations to do well, and it's been tough for him. But yeah, hopefully it'll be next season when we're in League One. He'll do well for Walsall in League Two instead, won't he? So there you go. I mean, looking through the rest of them, I mean, there's some decent experienced players in there, though, isn't there? I mean, Josh Labadie, he's one who always, he seems to be someone who gets yellow cards more often than even Jaden Harris does, isn't he? He constantly seems to be booked or getting suspended for long periods for something naughty. Hasn't he got done for biting in the past? Or have I made that up?
I don't know.
I bet. I'm going to Google that very quickly because otherwise I'm going to have to edit this out. And I always forget this. Right, Josh Labadie biting. Not something I search very often. There you go. The Dagenham midfielder Josh Labadie has been found guilty of violent conduct by the FA following a bite and banned for 6 months. Thank God for that, because that saved me having to edit that bit out. So he's been done for biting in the past. So someone who can clearly be easily wound up. So we'll have to see what happens with that at the weekend. But he always seems to have a good game against us annoyingly, doesn't he?
Yeah, maybe start Joe Garner for this one then.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just looking actually as well. I mean, even looking in attack with someone we haven't even mentioned. We mentioned all those other attackers. Connor Wilkinson. And Connor Wilkinson's someone who... he was doing really well at Orient, wasn't he, a couple of seasons ago? And now you look at him and he's struggling to make the impact. He's someone I would have liked us to sign in the past, but
he's been around. It feels like he's been around for ages, but I think he's only like 28.
Yeah, he's not the oldest. I'm going to quickly check that while we're talking as well. He's someone who, he links up really well, didn't he, in the past with other players, and it's just.
But he's a big lad, isn't he? So
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, his record, 10 goals in 33 games for Walsall. It's not too bad, but that's stretching back to 2021, so it just tells you he's had problems with injuries, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So, he's not quite made the impact he probably would have hoped for in his career so far, but there you go. In terms of talking points about them, I mean, we talked about goals being a problem for Tranmere. The problem for Walsall is they can't stop drawing games. It's absolutely ridiculous, isn't it? They don't lose that many. In the last 16 games, they've won just once, but they've only lost 4. The other 11 games have been draws. I think they had a run about 5 or 6 draws in a row at one point. The other day, they're probably glad we've drawn the last game though, because they drew 1-1 with Walsall thanks to a 95th minute. Drew Walsall. They drew with Sutton 1-1 thanks to a 95th minute equaliser. So they'll probably be happy with that point. I think it's fair to say. But yeah, prior to that run of the 16 games, they went on a run of 9 games with 1 defeat, 2 draws, and 6 wins. So they were capable of putting results together. But again, that's when they had Danny Johnson in the team. They were clearly built around getting results there, wasn't it? So
yeah, exactly.
So yeah, just a bit frustrating, I suppose, in that sense. Him going back to Mansfield in January really killed this season, and you kind of feel like Michael Finn's probably already planning, isn't he, for next season at the moment, I'd have thought.
Yeah, I think so.
Seems the obvious thing, doesn't it? But there you go. Right, let's talk about United then, Mike, injury-wise. So we now know from Simo's pre-match interview earlier today that's curtains for the season for Morgan Feeney, probably, and definitely for Finn Back, isn't it?
Yeah, which is really unfortunate. I think Ellis should hopefully be fit. He's been training for a couple of weeks now.
He played for the youth team, as we mentioned earlier, a couple of weeks ago, so I think he's fit. I think I'd probably put him in ahead of senior, and that's not a slight on senior. I just feel like defensively he's going to offer us a little bit more at the moment, and I think with Feeney being out and Barkley having to come back in as well, it might be a good idea to have someone who's a little bit more of that sort of thinking in that position.
Yeah, I mean, because there would be a little bit of concern, big crowd with Ellis, because he still is only young, but he played absolutely fine last season away at Bradford in front of a massive crowd, so nothing really seems to faze him, does it? So,
and a local lad, the fans will get behind him as well. That's what you'd think when you say that. I think that could really give him a lift. I personally pick up, but we'll talk about the team selection in a second. Other than that injury, we'll mention Finn Back actually briefly. I mean, just such rotten luck to that to happen for him, and I just really hope we can maybe get him back on loan next season. That's the real hope, isn't it? And
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so it looks like potentially 12 to 16 weeks he's out, so hopefully he'll be back for pre-season training, but it looks tight potentially if it's that long. 12 weeks, maybe he'll be back for the start of pre-season, but yeah, not great for Finn. With Morgan, obviously he's out of contract in the summer, and I'm hoping that now he's out injured, we'll just sit down and say, right, let's get your deal sorted for the summer, because that could give the squad a real lift as well, actually getting that announced before the end of the season. Yeah. Knowing that he's going to be here, so that's the hope.
I mean, fingers crossed. I mean, personally, I think he is too good for this level.
Injuries are maybe the only concern with him, though, isn't it? Because he does pick up a few, so he's not been too bad last season and a half. But...
Well, yeah, he's been all right for us. Before he signed for us, he'd picked up a few. But yeah, I'd really look at tying him down.
Yeah, so in terms of injuries, Dickinson's probably got a month away, we reckon, still, maybe. Might be a little bit sooner, though. He's been out on the grass, and Dixon, once he was out on the grass and back to actually playing reserve games, it wasn't that long, was it? It was actually a lot quicker than you'd have thought. So maybe the last couple of games he'd be fit, which, he's probably not going to be involved, but it gives you another option, doesn't it, potentially, for the playoffs, especially if we're playing in them. That'd be fantastic to have him back for that. Toby Show's still about 1 to 2 months. Probably looks like his season's over. We've already said this, haven't we? And then we'll see them Feeney and back. And other than that, everyone's fit, aren't they? So plenty to choose from. I mean, big opportunity, isn't it? Really, against two sides that are firmly in mid-table. No chance of playoffs. No chance of going down. Got to take advantage of the big crowd for this game, haven't we? For both games, actually, because it should be a big following down at Walsall.
Yeah, definitely.
So, team selection-wise, defence. Who comes in for Back and Feeney then for you?
I think for Tranmere, I would start senior because he just offers that bit more going forward, and it's a home game. And I feel like this kind of leads into the Feeney one, but I'd probably play Whelan for Feeney, purely because, and you touched on this earlier, is that Barkley can't play against Stockport, so I'd like us to maybe get a bit of a settled back three before that game, rather than put Barkley in and then have to take him out for that game. Yeah,
I'm with you in the sense that I want Whelan to play at least one of these games, because I think it'd be good just to keep him fresh and ticking over, because he will have to come in for that game against against Stockport. Unless we go to a back four for that game, maybe change it up slightly, and then. Yeah, I think I'd probably play Barkley for the game against Tranmere. Maybe if we can get ourselves into a lead, bring Whelan on later on just to keep him ticking over. Again, I'd probably I played Whelan at Walsall, and then for the other two, I'd play Ellis at wing back for both games personally. That would be my choice. The rest of the defence are back, pick themselves, don't they? Really, there's no change there. Midfield. Do you stick with the three, or is it time to twist? We mentioned about the final ball and decision making being poor. What would you maybe bring Devitt in?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing. If we're going to carry on playing the three as we have done, playing Moxon, Guy, and playing Devitt that bit further forward. I think he's been patient, and past few games, Gibson and McCalmont haven't been
McCalvin had a
doing...
good game against Orient, though. Everyone raved about how well he played in that game. He came off as a sub again in that one, but...
Yeah. Although I'd rather have McCalmont's pressing for Walsall.
Yeah. I think I'd agree with that. I think I'd love Devitt to play, but I don't think he's going to bring him out of the cold for this. I think I go back to, I think he should have played at Gillingham and he should have rested Moxon for that one onto the bench. But that's been and gone now. I think I'd play Gibson ahead of McCalmont for this one. I just feel like a little bit more creative attacking flair in that final third. You can potentially switch to playing the front three. And we'll talk about forwards in a minute, but whoever we play in the front three, I think you can then switch to a front three if you need to.
Yeah.
You could even go 4-3-3 possibly if you push Melch into midfield and then push Gibson to one of the wings. That's why I'd probably go with Gibson. So I want to give us as many options as possible for this game to really get something from it. Into attack, which two are you going to go for?
I would go for Dennis, and I'd go for Patrick as well. And
that
might be the controversial one, but he likes to play in front of a crowd. And when he's beating his man and getting the crowd going, I think we could really do with a bit of that.
Okay, no, that's fair enough. And to be fair, he had a good game against Barrow, I suppose, with the big crowd, didn't he? You could say so. That's a fair point. No, I'd go with Dennis as well. Definitely, I think most people in agreement stick with Dennis at the moment, and I'd probably play Edmondson with him, and I'd stick with those two for a little bit. But I'd not be against Patrick, and I can understand why some people want Patrick out of the team then, because his confidence doesn't look 100% there at the moment. That said, he's still trying to create stuff. He's still getting involved. Yeah, he's not shirking in that sense. So yeah, interesting to see how he lines up, isn't it? Really, in terms of that. In terms of subs, would you freshen things up a little bit in there, or would you sort of stick with it? I mean, I'd keep Devitt on there definitely. I think the only question is whether you bring Gordon back in, maybe for Devitt, possibly. I suppose.
Yeah, it's weird, really, because Gordon seems to kind of been outcast a little bit in more recent weeks. I don't know what's going on there.
Just not kicking on, is he, really? It's a shame he had such a good start and he's never really quite grasped the chances he's had since maybe that first 6 weeks or so.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think striker-wise, whichever two we do play, it wouldn't surprise me if we played a different two altogether at Walsall, just purely for fresher legs. But, I mean, we've got so many options that if they're players who are on the bench, they can bring a lot to the team, bringing them on. Yeah,
definitely. Right, predictions time. Mike, what are you going to go for? Let's do them both in one go.
So for Tranmere...
tell you what, go Tranmere first, actually, because I'll have to do Dan separately. So go with Tranmere first.
Yeah, so for Tranmere, I'm going to go for I'll go for a 3-0 win, and I'll go for goals from Dennis, Moxon and Huntington.
Okay, right. I'm going to go... I just feel if we can get an early goal on this one, I think it'll drive the team on and we'll be confident. I know Tranmere haven't conceded many goals, but I just feel like that big crowd will really give us a lift. So I'm going to go 4-0.
Ooh.
I know it's hopelessly optimistic, but 4-0. And I think Dennis, Moxon, McCalmont, and Jack Ellis. Let's have a Jack Ellis goal from out of nowhere. Yeah, let's go with that. Right. Here's Dan's prediction for Tranmere.
Today before the game, the club have just announced 10,500 home tickets sold. Tranmere probably got about 600-700 coming. So you're probably looking at about 12,000 in Brunton Park. Typically, I'm working on the bank holiday, no chance of getting it off. So I'm going to go for a 3-0 win in front of 12,000 with goals from Christian Dennis, Ryan Edmondson and Owen Moxon.
We're all going for fairly... So if Christian Dennis and Moxon score, we've all got points there anyway. Yeah. It all just depends on the final score and who the other goal scorers are. So, we spread it out quite a bit there, haven't we? Yeah. Walsall, Mike, then, what are you going for?
I'm going to go for a 2-1 win, and I'll go for goals from Joe Garner. I think I saw Garner score at Walsall years ago in the green away kit. And I'll go for a goal from Ryan Edmondson as well.
2-0 Dennis Brace. There you go, straight to the point on that one. Right, here's Dan's prediction for Walsall.
Tricky one, this, because Walsall haven't really got anything to play for, but they're at home, so they'll want to do all right. It wouldn't surprise me if we got a point here, but I'm going to go for a sneaky 2-1 win, bit of revenge for the FA Cup game. And I'm going to go for Christian Dennis. He's going to score again. He's going to go on a run that's going to lead us to promotion, hopefully. And the other one, we'll go for a Jack Armour howitzer, 25-yard top corner.
Howitzer. He's already got one of them this season. He's not getting another one, Dan. Let's be realistic here. There you go. Right, thank you, Dan, for your predictions there. In fact, before we do the X-Files, should we have a try and think if we can try and guess who this answer is to Dan's question?
I cannot think at all.
It's a belter, isn't it? It's a real belter. Yeah. It's not going to be someone that old. That's the thing. What I'm trying to think, right? So, I mean, Ziege and Ronaldo never played for both clubs. David Raven didn't play for Walsall. Who have we signed who's played for Walsall in recent seasons? I mean, Simo played for Walsall, but he didn't play that many games. He only played 6 games, I think, in a loan spell. I haven't got it. I think we're just going to have to do the answer, aren't we? So here's an answer to what I think is a belting question from Dan.
And the answer is Ray Train, one of the mainstays of our mid-70s team under Alan Ashman.
Oh, there you go. Me saying, it's going to be someone fairly recent. Couldn't have gone back much further. Really, could it? Might as well name Bob Kelly or someone like that instead. But there you go. Right, let's wrap things up, Mike. Then let's do the X-Files section. No midweek ones. Fairly quiet. Just basically the weekend goals, wasn't it, last weekend? But there's a few to cover. Brad Pott and Jerry Yates, they both scored in the Lancashire derby between Preston and Blackpool. But it was Pottsy, he'll be happier, won't it? So his PNE side, they won 3-1 in this game, didn't they? Blackpool look knackered, don't they? Looks like they're going on to League One next season.
Yeah, hopefully we'll be joining them.
That's the dream, isn't it? That's the dream away day for next season, I would say.
Although I feel you nailed on to play them on like New Year's Eve, Boxing Day.
Boxing Day, yeah, absolutely. So let's not get too excited, shall we? Jack Marriott got a brace for Fleetwood Town in their 2-2 draw at home against Exeter City. Dinell Simiyu, he scored in the wrong net in a 5-0 defeat for Morecambe at Barnsley. Looks like Morecambe are going down, doesn't it? So hopefully we'll pass him in the other direction is what we're hoping, isn't it? But they've just collapsed, haven't they? It looked like they were comfortable and sort of pulling themselves away, but it's all just gone wrong for them. And Cole Stockton just not scoring goals this season. I think they made a huge mistake there not cashing in on him.
Yeah. I think it was like 300 grand they were offered or something.
Even if it was like 100, take it.
Yeah.
You can use that to rebuild, and realistically, you've probably got the best season out of his career from him. Just take the chance, but there you go. I'd never get the decision some clubs make. But Alex Gilliard and Andy Cook, they both scored in Bradford City's 3-2 win over Grimsby Town. Cook's goal came, I think, with like 9 minutes to go, which so frustrating that you were looking to think of Grimsby going to nick a point. Yeah, that's a good result. And then, there you go. So it's getting very tight in the playoffs now. Adam Campbell, what a weekend he had. He scored the opening goal from the spot in Gateshead's dramatic 3-3 draw with Barnet in the FA Trophy semi-finals. I think Barnet equalised in injury time with this as well. And then Gateshead nearly got another penalty, but it was a free kick right on the edge of the box that they were given, which they didn't score from. Went to penalty shootout and he scored the first spot kick in the 4-2 win to earn them a place at Wembley in the final. So well done to Gateshead and Adam Campbell there. And finally, Gavin Riley. He's netted for the second successive game as he helped Stenhousemuir to a 2-1 win at Dumbarton. And that's it, Mike, isn't it?
Yeah.
Bumper episode this. I think we'll push it. I think it actually will eclipse 2 hours, probably for the first time ever. That so. Yeah, this will be a fun one for anyone driving up from the sort of Lancashire, Manchester area, which is not us listening to it, by the way. We're not going to listen to ourselves for 2 hours. There you go. Thank you, everyone, who's got this far. I appreciate it. It is a very long episode, but there was a lot to fit in, and we were kind enough to get opposition fans of both clubs to speak to us, so we thought we had to include them both. So there you go. In terms of upcoming episodes, we've got a preview for it's going to be a massive game against Northampton and another massive game against Stockport, isn't it, in the 2 home games in a row coming up.
Well, they're all cup finals now, aren't they?
They are, but you look at it, 7 games remaining, 4 of them at home, and then other than Tranmere, the other 3 are against teams around us. Get results in them, you go up. Simple as that, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
And then your 3 away games, I think I'd argue are all winnable, really, from what's left. But We'll have to see what happens with those. Yes, we've got those coming up, and yeah, we'll start planning for what we're doing for the end of the season. And I will be putting out a listener survey in the next month or so, just to get some of your views on the podcast, what you enjoy, what you don't enjoy, what you'd like to see a bit more of. And we're going to start planning for next season. We're going to start looking to get more people involved next season, because it's a bit of a strain sometimes, isn't it, Mike, for you and Dan, because we have to sort of work around your rotas at work, and
yeah,
there's some weeks where we struggle, and Greg has been very kind to step in on a couple of occasions this season, so we maybe want to try and get more people on, because I feel like the best episodes we do are the ones where there's 3 of us on, rather than just me and you or me and Dan talking, isn't it? I think they're the ones where we get a bit more good chat out of them, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. Right, Mike, thanks for joining me. Thanks for joining me. I'll be seeing you in about maybe 12, 14 hours time or so, I think.
Yeah.
To go to the game. Can't wait for it. Really can't. I'm so excited for this. Going to be a big crowd. Let's just hope the Blues turn up. Thanks everyone for listening, and up the Blues.
Up the Blues.